Chapter 2308, The Real and Fake God of War Token. 2. This series of events tested the endurance of everyone's hearts. Some of them were even wondering if they would be able to walk out of the Yao family alive after knowing so many secrets. So, thinking that they might die here, many people couldn't help but cry in their hearts. Today, they had been too shocked. What do you mean I stole it? I didn't steal it. Don't talk nonsense and accuse me. The head of the Yao family grew anxious when he heard this. She shouldn't have poured dirty water on him like this. When the Yao family head heard the Chung family head's words, he was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. That damn thing was really too infuriating. He must have done it on purpose. You said Sir Dongfang Yu's war god token is in your hands. Did we hear you right? The head of the Chung family asked with an evil smile. Yes, that's right, the head of the Yao family said. However, he only managed to say 3 words before the rest of his words were stuck in his throat by the head of the Chung family. He didn't have the chance to say them. Then it's settled. Back then, Sir Dongfang Yu's token was lost, and it's in your hands now. Didn't you steal it? The head of the Chung family said matter-of-factly, and even had a face that said, I'm smart, right? His words also made the head of the Yao family tremble with anger, and his face instantly turned livid. However, the head of the Chung clan was not afraid of him. Then, the head of the Chung family looked at Dongfang Yu with a smile and said, Sir Dongfang Yu, we've found the thief who stole your token. He's the head of the Yao family. Well, there must be punishment for stealing, so you can do whatever you want with him, we won't care. You guys can slowly settle the score between you. All right. Dongfang Yu received the Chung family's head's goodwill and replied with a smile. The patriarch of the Yao family almost fainted from their words. As the crowd listened to them echoing each other, they could not help but feel embarrassed. At this moment, they were extremely sympathetic to the Yao family head. You know how to lie with your eyes open, turning black into white, but so do others. I just don't know how Sir Dongfang Yu is going to punish the head of the Yao family. While the crowd sympathized with the Yao family head, they couldn't help but feel curious. In fact, everyone was well aware that it was impossible for the head of the Yao family to have stolen the token of the god of war, Dongfang Yu. Everyone knew that the head of the Yao family was just a small fry in the divine world at that time. How could he have the opportunity to steal the token of Lord Dongfang Yu? However, now that things had come to this point, although everyone was clear in their hearts, they could only pretend to know nothing and act as bystanders. Otherwise, anyone would be depressed if they were dragged into this. In an instant, everyone decided to stay out of this matter. They couldn't afford to offend any of these people. They'd better be invisible. It had to be said that everyone's decision was wise. But in the heart of the Yao family's head, he was boiling with anger, and it set off a stormy wave in his heart, igniting a sea of fire. Unfortunately, he had no way to vent it. Thanks, I didn't steal that token. After taking a few deep breaths and feeling that his anger had slightly calmed down, the head of the Yao family gritted his teeth and said, Is the token in your hands? The head of the Chung clan asked again. Yes. The head of the Yao family gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. He really wanted to rush forward and grab the head of the Chung family to bite him a few times. This damn old man was really too annoying. It was all his nonsense that wronged her, causing her to almost die from anger. Then you stole it. Otherwise, how could it be in your hands? The head of the Chung family happily came to an important conclusion, but he was already laughing in his heart. Even if he couldn't anger the Yao family's old man to death, he would at least make him spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. How satisfying. I picked it up. I can't? The head of the Yao family glared at him with eyes that were spitting fire as he roared. You picked it up? Do you think we're 3-year-old kids? It was wrong. Even a 3-year-old child would not believe you. Moreover, why did you pick it up and why can't we? The head of the Chung clan asked with a face full of doubt. I'm lucky. The head of the Yao family roared with a red face. You're lucky? With your stinky hands, how could you pick up anything good? This is too funny. Patriarch Qing didn't believe Patriarch Yao's words at all, And the expressions on the faces of the people who had been listening attentively the whole time were also clearly suspicious. A junior of my family found it by accident, so I handed it over to the family. Is that okay? The head of the Yao family helplessly told the truth. I see. Master Yao, even if you say so, there's no evidence to prove that you didn't steal Lord Dongfang Yu's token. However, since you've said so, we should give you a chance to explain yourself. So, tell me, why didn't you return this token to Sir Dongfang Yu when your junior picked it up? What were your intentions? The master of the Chung family asked with a stern face. When my family's junior found this token, Sir Dongfang Yu had already been missing for a long time. How could I return it to him? Although he was angered by the Chung family head's words to the point of spitting blood, the Yao family head had no choice but to suppress his anger and patiently explain. Otherwise, with so many people present, if this matter were to spread, who knew what kind of situation it would become? The current him was fully aware of the power of rumors, because he had been deeply harmed during this period of time. Oh, alright, you're right. Then let me ask you, you know that Sir Dongfang Yu's token is in your hands, so why do you still want him to take it out? Aren't you making things difficult for her on purpose? Your mind is really too sinister. The more Patriarch Chung spoke, the deeper the contempt on his face became. Do you think I can't punish you just because you didn't steal the token? From the moment the old man from the Yao family said that Dongfang Yu's token was in his hands, it was already a big mistake. The head of the Chung clan couldn't help but think to himself. Everyone present felt the same way after hearing the patriarch of the Chung clan's words. The head of the Yao family had indeed done something wrong. Let's not talk about how Dongfang Yu's token got into his hands. He knew that the token was in his hands, but he still asked Dongfang Yu to prove it. This was definitely making things difficult for him. In an instant, the gazes everyone directed at the Yao family's head changed from sympathy to disdain. The Yao family head was tongue-tied by the Chung family head's words. He stammered for a long time but couldn't say a complete sentence. In his heart, he was so angry that he was about to explode. Who could drag this hateful old thing of the Chung family out? Now, when he saw the old man, his heart couldn't help but beat faster. Of course, it was all because of anger. However, no one could respond to his inner thoughts at this time. Dongfang Yu, who had been watching the show for a while, said, "Everyone, I know that you are very concerned about me and I am very grateful for that. However, what I want to say is that the real War God's token has not been lost. The one that was lost was just a fake." Chapter 2309, The Real and Fake God of War Tokens. 3. Dongfang Yu's words shocked everyone again. In just a short while, the number of times they were surprised was almost the total number of times they were surprised in 100 years. This is impossible. Hearing that the War God's token he had kept was a fake, the head of the Yao family couldn't stay calm anymore. One had to know that the token was kept by him like a treasure. How could it be a fake? The head of the Yao family simply couldn't accept this fact. After some thought, he added, "You can't say that my War God token is fake just because you have one. I could have said that yours was a fake. If Yao family head doesn't believe me, you can take out the token in your hand and compare it with mine. At that time, we'll know who's the real one." Dongfang Yu suggested. "Good. I'll take it, my piece can't be fake," the head of the Yao family said confidently. After he finished speaking, he quickly took out the War God's token from his storage ring. As soon as the token appeared, it exuded a rather ancient aura, just like the one Dongfang Yu had taken out. It also gave off a sense of deterrence. Everyone looked at the one in Dongfang Yu's hand and then at the one in the Yao family's head's hand. For a moment, they couldn't tell which one was real and which one was fake. Seeing the question marks on everyone's faces, the Yao family's head was pleased. He had said it before, how could his be fake? However, the two tokens gave off the same aura. It wasn't easy to say that the token in Dongfang Yu's hand was fake. Thinking of this, the head of the Yao family couldn't help but frown. What should he do to make everyone believe that the one in Dongfang Yu's hands was fake? The head of the Yao family thought hard. Suddenly, his heart trembled, and his face instantly turned pale. The massive and ancient aura on his token had disappeared, and it had turned into an ordinary black iron token. This fact drove him crazy. How did this happen? How did this happen? The head of the Yao family couldn't believe this fact. However, the token in Dongfang Yu's hand was still like a king looking down on all living beings. There was no need to argue anymore. Dongfang Yu's identity was acknowledged by all the major forces without any doubt. In fact, they had acknowledged Dongfang Yu's identity the moment he appeared because they didn't think anyone would dare to impersonate him. However, the head of the Yao family didn't know if water had entered his brain, but he actually wanted to make such a scene. Now, great, let's see how he will end this. Those who didn't like the head of the Yao family couldn't help but secretly laugh. Yao family head, can you acknowledge my identity now? What's going on? Dongfang Yu asked as he put away the token and looked at the pale-faced master of the Yao family, who was still in a daze. How could this be? How did this happen? The head of the Yao family kept repeating the same words. Clearly, he couldn't accept the fact that his collection was a fake. This was too much of a blow to him. Yao family head, I've said it before, the token I lost back then was fake. Because I accidentally discovered that someone was after the war god's token, I asked the divine master to make a few more fakes for me just in case. I didn't expect that one of the fakes would really be stolen. Dongfang Yu answered with a smile. Then why do the two tokens have the same aura? Moreover, over the years, I have taken out the token countless times, but there has never been a situation where the aura disappears. What did you do to my token? The head of the Yao family snapped back to his senses and questioned him angrily. At this moment he had long forgotten that the token he had collected was actually Dongfang Yu's. You still don't understand? Two identical tokens, the fake meeting the real one, naturally will be exposed. Leng Ruoxue could only kindly explain when she saw that the head of the Yao family had suffered a huge blow. Not bad. When the token in your hand appears alone, no one will notice anything wrong. However, when the real and the fake appear at the same time, the fake naturally can't be real. Dongfang Yu added with a smile. After hearing this explanation, the head of the Yao family was completely listless. Thanks, old man Yao, my condolences. It's just a token. If it's fake, then so be it. It's not yours anyway. Besides, since you've suffered quite a bit, I won't pursue the matter of you deliberately making things difficult for Sir Dongfang Yu. However, I don't know if Sir Dongfang Yu will let you off easily. You take care of yourself. Seeing this, the head of the Chung family patted the shoulder of the head of the Yao family with a look of sympathy and consoled. However, the head of the Yao family didn't appreciate his comfort and didn't give him any good looks. However, the head of the Chung clan didn't care that his warm face was stuck to someone else's cold butt. Instead, he smiled and said to everyone present, Now, Sir Dongfang Yu's identity has finally been confirmed. Let's welcome the return of the great war god. After he finished speaking, he took the lead in clapping. Then, thunderous applause suddenly rang out. Dongfang Yu also nodded to the crowd to express his gratitude. However, when the head of the Yao family heard the applause, he could not understand the joy of the crowd. But at this time, he had completely calmed down. However, his heart was cold because he knew that he had completely offended Dongfang Yu. Although Dongfang Yu had not said anything, it did not mean that he would not hold a grudge. Thinking up to this point, the head of the Yao family could only thicken his skin and say, Sir Dongfang Yu, I was being disrespectful to you because I wanted to verify your identity. I hope you don't blame me. Don't worry, I won't take it to heart. Dongfang Yu said with a friendly smile. However, he couldn't help but think to himself, my biggest enemy is Wu Chen. Who has the time to deal with you? In his eyes, the Yao family head was just a clown, and he didn't need to spare time to deal with him. He just needed to deal with this old thing when he was ready, so there was no need to waste too much time on him. When the head of the Yao family heard Dongfang Yu's words, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. Otherwise, he was really afraid that Dongfang Yu would not let him off. Unfortunately, he couldn't read Dongfang Yu's mind, so he didn't know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would be depressed to death. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue saw that the matter of Dongfang Yu's identity had finally come to an end. She smiled and said, Everyone, now that you've confirmed Dongfang Yu's identity, I think you'd like to hear about his experiences over the years, right? They really wanted to hear it. Although they knew that they had no choice but to listen and Lung Ruoxue would not let them go, they could not deny that Dongfang Yu's experiences over the years were quite attractive to them. Their only hope was not to hear anything that would shock them. But was that possible? Lung Ruoxue had to show them evidence. Seeing that everyone was all ears, Dongfang Yu's deep and pleasant voice slowly sounded, "I've been in the Divine Master's estate all these years." After Dongfang Yu finished his sentence, he deliberately paused to give everyone a chance to fill in the blanks. As expected, Xia Yi and Huang Wei's expressions changed drastically when they heard this. Sir Dongfang Yu has always been in the Divine Master's estate? How come they didn't know about it? Where was he in the Divine Master's residence? For some reason, they had a bad feeling at the same time. They could feel that what Dongfang Yu was going to say next might bring a huge storm to the divinity. As for the others, they were still looking at Dongfang Yu in confusion, waiting for him to continue. Glancing at everyone's expressions, Dongfang Yu continued, "I was locked up by that bitch, Wu Yan. No, I should say we are locked up." He looked at Uncle Lien and the others and continued, "We've been imprisoned by her for hundreds of thousands of years and suffered from that perverted woman's torture. Fortunately, Shui saved us. Otherwise, we'd never have the chance to see the light of day again, let alone see you all." So, Master Ning's words are true. Master Yu was indeed killed by the fog. The same words coming from Master Ning's mouth were naturally not as heavy as coming from Dongfang Yu's mouth. Moreover, the crowd had been frightened by Master Ning's words, and to a large extent, they couldn't completely believe that it was the truth. Some people even thought that Master Ning was trying to defame God Lord Rimming Mist. Thus, they didn't want to stay for a moment longer, for fear that they would be implicated by Master Ning, who might be spreading rumors to slander God Lord Rimming Mist. However, Dongfang Yu was the most trusted man of the former Divine Lord, Lord Yu. The credibility of his words was not something that the master of the Ning family could compare with. Therefore, everyone's face turned pale as soon as he said this. Some of the more timid ones couldn't help but tremble. They were truly afraid. Before this, they might have been able to feign ignorance about the credibility of those words and escape in a panic. But now, many of them were weak in the knees and couldn't escape even if they wanted to. After giving everyone some buffer time, Dongfang Yu began to introduce in detail what the fog ice had done to them for the past hundreds of thousands of years. When the people present heard Dongfang Yu's description of the torture that Wu Emo had inflicted on them, quite a number of them fainted from shock. However, Dongfang Yu didn't care if anyone was afraid. He continued to vividly describe what Lung Ruoxue had asked him to say. However, when he saw everyone fainting one after another, he suddenly couldn't help but hold it in. Chapter 23:10. The Way of a Man, 1. Wasn't it a little too much for him to scare her like this? However, Shuo was the one who told him to say these words. She even told him to say it as gory as possible, and he did as he was told. These words were definitely the truth, without a hint of falsehood. However, these people's psychological endurance seemed to be a little weak. How did they faint from fear so quickly? To be honest, Dongfang Yu was depressed and a little unhappy when he saw them faint. He had only needed to say a few words to make them faint. If these people were to experience the treatment they had been through, wouldn't they? His heart trembled. He didn't dare to imagine if these people could hold on. However, just as this thought surfaced in his mind, Lung Ruoxue's voice rang in his ears. "Everyone, in order to let you experience the torture that Dongfang Yu and the others have suffered, I've decided to let you experience it for yourself." Dongfang Yu was silent for a moment after hearing this. He didn't dare to let his thoughts run wild. So, Shuer most likely knew how to read minds. Otherwise, why would that little girl execute his thoughts just now? At this moment, he couldn't tell if he was feeling sympathy for these people or something else. In short, as long as he thought about how these people would be treated the same way as them, his complicated feelings for the person in front of him were like a surging river, endless. In reality, Lung Ruoxue's thoughts were not directly related to Dongfang Yu's thoughts. Lung Ruoxue did not read his mind. It was just that Lung Ruoxue felt that no matter how eloquently Dongfang Yu spoke, it would not be as good as letting them feel it directly. Hence, before Dongfang Yu had thought of it this way, Leng Ruoxue had already thought of it. When the patriarch of the Chung clan and the others heard this, they couldn't help but be speechless. When the representatives of the various major forces heard these words, some of them felt dizzy, while some of them were in a daze. Even so, they still had to personally experience all of this horror? This wouldn't cost them their lives, right? Thinking of this, the head of the Chung family couldn't help but remind him, "Swear, little girl, so many of these people have fainted. Do you still want them to experience it?" "Of course." After Leng Ruoxue finished speaking, a small and exquisite white whale appeared in front of everyone. When it first saw Master Cheng and the others, the little white whale was a little shy. However, when it faced those who had fainted, it was very strong. The little white whale opened its mouth slightly, and then a few water pillars shot out from it. When the water pillars first came out, they were only a few small ones, but when they fell on those people, they became a heavy downpour. In an instant, the people who had fainted were drenched like fallen chickens. When the head of the Chung family and the others saw this, they couldn't help but shiver. They thought to themselves, "Shui is really ruthless." The water column that the white whale spewed out emitted a bone-piercing chill. Even those who were awake could feel the chill from the inside out, let alone those who had already passed out. These people's bodies had already lost all resistance. Just as they were thinking this, they saw that someone had already woken up from the cold. The first person to wake up was trembling all over, and his face was even paler. He was like a chick that had just come out of its shell, looking lost and at a loss. "Isn't someone already awake?" Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. "Alright. Did someone wake up, or was it because of the cold?" When the Chung clan's clan head and the others heard this, they secretly sighed to themselves. They were deeply touched by Leng Ruoxue's methods. That little girl would definitely not play her cards according to the rules. At the same time, when they thought of this, they also felt deeply rejoiced. It was fortunate that they had not offended this little girl. Otherwise, they would have to receive the same treatment as them. Thanks, of course, these people didn't dare to offend Leng Ruoxue too much at the moment. It was just that they had fainted from fear, and Leng Ruoxue needed them to wake up. As the unconscious people woke up one by one, Leng Ruoxue repeated her thoughts to everyone. After hearing it, some people wanted to faint again. However, there was no way Leng Ruoxue would give them the chance to faint again. She only said indifferently, "Whoever faints again, I guarantee that they will never wake up." Hearing this, who would still dare to faint? Therefore, everyone forced themselves to be alert and looked at Leng Ruoxue pitifully, hoping that she would be kind enough to let them go. However, Leng Ruoxue had never thought of herself as a kind person. Hence, she ignored their pleading gazes and sent them into the dream dust space. The dream dust in the space received everyone who came to experience it, and when everyone was there, he began his work. In a short moment, only the people from the 8 divine domains, the Alchemist Guild headquarters, the Artifact Master Guild headquarters, the Phoenix clan, the Dragon clan, and the Ascender Alliance remained outside the Yao family's living room. Seeing that there were so few people, the head of the Cheng family couldn't help but ask curiously, "Swear, little girl, did those people go to experience it?" "Of course. Do you guys want to experience it too?" Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes swept across the few remaining people present as she asked. When the patriarch of the Cheng family and the others heard this, they shook their heads repeatedly. They didn't want to experience any form of torture, and they didn't believe that Leng Ruoxue simply wanted those people to experience those things. Hence, they deeply felt that it was safer to stay outside. "That's a pity." Seeing them shake their heads, Leng Ruoxue had no choice but to say this. Then she looked at them in the eye. No one said a word, and the atmosphere suddenly became heavy. In fact, when Jiang Ning, who had been secretly peeking at Leng Ruoxue from the side, saw her in person, he was so anxious that he wanted to go up to her and get close to her. However, he was stopped by that hateful Mo Yen. Mo Yen even sent him a voice transmission, telling him to calm down and not cause any trouble for that girl. Just listening to his words, it was so infuriating. How could he cause trouble for others? He didn't know how popular he was, but Mo Yen wouldn't allow him to act rashly and even threatened him that if he didn't listen, he wouldn't put in a good word for him in front of Leng Ruoxue. With such a threat, he really had to be obedient. However, it was as if there was a kitten living in his heart. The kitten's claws were still scratching at his heart, making his heart itch unbearably. It was because of this that his resentful little eyes kept floating over Leng Ruoxue's body. Leng Ruoxue, who had been very calm all this while, also clearly felt a probing gaze. She subconsciously turned her head to take a look, only to realize that someone from the Alchemist Guild headquarters was secretly peeking at her. When he saw her looking at him, that person even lowered his head shyly. This scene made Leng Ruoxue's forehead fill with black lines. Who is this pretty boy? Do you know her? Jiang Ning would never have thought that he was being treated as a gigolo by Leng Ruoxue, who had lowered his head so quickly because he was afraid of being discovered. If he knew Leng Ruoxue's thoughts, he would definitely cry out. Chapter 2311, The Way of a Man, 2, A Pretty Boy. He was the dignified vice president of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. He had status, and face, so how could he be a pretty boy? However, in everyone's eyes, Jiang Ning's fair and handsome face really did look like a pretty boy. Of course, no one would dare to say this in front of him. Leng Ruoxue turned around and saw that it was a pretty boy looking at her. Naturally, she did not pay much attention to him. As for Mo Yen and Old Ancestor who were standing beside him, she did not take the initiative to greet them. After giving them a tacit look, she turned her beautiful eyes back to the Yao family head. Her beautiful eyes kept looking at the Yao family's head, making him feel uneasy. In the end, she looked at the furious Yao family's head and made him feel uncomfortable. The head of the Yao family didn't even think about it before he lost his mind and roared, "Why do you keep looking at me?" Everyone had different reactions to this. There were those who were surprised and those who wanted to laugh. However, Leng Ruoxue was extremely calm as she replied, "What? You can't even take a look? Is Master Yao afraid of being looked at? Or do I have to pay a fee to see you?" The head of the Yao family trembled in anger at the sharp-tongued Leng Ruoxue. He couldn't even form a complete sentence. His chest heaved up and down violently. Suddenly, he started panting. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue was a little afraid and quickly said, "Yao family head, don't be agitated, calm down. If you're shy, I won't look. However, you can't always be so introverted. In the future, the Yao family will still be counting on you to make money. If you can't let it go, other people will faint at a glance, and your Yao family will have to starve in the future." What do you mean by that? After a long while, the head of the Yao family finally shouted out this sentence and pointed at Leng Ruoxue with a questioning look. I know that the Yao family doesn't have much money left, so I wanted to introduce you to a job. I just don't know if you're interested?" Leng Ruoxue asked with a bright smile. When the head of the Yao family heard this, he was stunned. However, the head of the Chung family was very interested in this topic and quickly asked, "Little girl, what job are you going to introduce him to? Do you earn a lot of money?" "A good job, of course. You can earn a lot of money." Leng Ruoxue's smile was extremely mysterious. "Really? Old man Yao, what are you waiting for with such a good job? Quickly agree." After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the Cheng clan's clan head immediately shifted his gaze to the Yao clan's clan head and loudly advised, "Agree my ass. I don't need any work." The head of the Yao family gritted his teeth and said, his face turning green with anger, "How can you not need it? Your Yao family can still afford it. Don't try to act all high and mighty, we all know who you are." The head of the Chung clan said with a look of disbelief, clearly not believing his words. "I said I don't need to work. If you want to do it, go do it." The head of the Yao clan stomped his feet in anger. "The little girl was found for you, so of course I can't snatch her from you. Right? The girl?" The head of the Chung clan turned his head and asked. Leng Ruoxue nodded. "Master Yao, the job I've recommended is only suitable for you. No one else can do it. I said I don't need it." The head of the Yao family couldn't bear it anymore and roared, but he didn't dare to shout too loudly because he saw Tsong's eyelids close. Therefore, as he spoke, his voice became softer and softer, and his imposing manner disappeared. Thanks, AI. If you don't appreciate it, then forget it. However, I'll keep this job opportunity for you. In the future, if you're at a dead end in the divine realm, remember to come and find me. Lung Ruoxue said with an understanding look. However, after hearing this, Master Yao's face turned even darker. You're the one who's at a dead end. This wretched girl was clearly cursing him. This was really too detestable. The anger in his heart instantly turned into a sea of fire. However, in fear of Yu Tsong's existence, the Yao family head could only try his best to suppress his anger. However, the various grievances in his heart made him so mad that he wanted to bang his head against the wall. Even though he had not fought with Lung Ruoxue many times, he had never won a single time. This fact made him so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. However, what made him even more envious and jealous was that this damned girl's luck was so good. She had only been in the divine realm for a few years, but she had already made a name for herself. Even the Totoro that had wreaked havoc in the Godlord's estate had fallen into her hands. One had to know that not even Godlord Fogripple could do anything to that Totoro. But now, he was like a pet, lying in her arms. How could she not hate him? The head of the Yao family's old face was flushed red as he let his thoughts run wild, thinking about the various grievances in his heart. However, Lung Ruoxue didn't have the time to consider his feelings. She felt that it was about time, so she ordered Huan Chen to send out the people who had gone in to experience the torture. The people who were sent out were obviously still thinking about the scene at that time. Some of them even shouted, "Please let me go. Independent Illinois explain. I'll tell you everything. I surrender. I'm willing to submit to Godlord Fogripple. Long live Godlord Fogripple." Woo-wah. For a time, the scene was chaotic. There were people crying loudly, screaming in pain, and talking nonsense. All kinds of situations occurred, which made the head of the Chung family and the others' foreheads full of black lines. What was this situation? How were they tortured in there? The Cheng family head and the others were both curious and puzzled. Looking at these people's appearances, it was obvious that they couldn't hold on and confessed everything. However, Lung Ruoxue adopted a cold and detached attitude towards this. After a long time, the sound of crying became weaker and weaker, and many people slowly regained their consciousness. They also remembered that everything before might have been an illusion. Suddenly, most of them felt so embarrassed that they wanted to find a hole to hide in. It was really too embarrassing, wasn't it? How do you feel? Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile when she saw that the people who had gone in to experience it had mostly recovered. Ah. The crowd felt awkward and did not know how to answer Lung Ruoxue's question. However, Lung Ruoxue did not expect to hear their answer. Instead, she continued, "For hundreds of thousands of years, Dongfang Yu and the others have been subjected to such torture. What you've experienced is just a drop in the ocean. So, please put yourself in my shoes. Should we go to the Ripple Mist to take revenge?" After Lung Ruoxue finished her sentence, she stopped speaking for the time being. She left enough space for everyone to think. In her eyes, although these people were not the top figures in the divinity, people like them were the most common in the divinity. That was why Lung Ruoxue had gone through so much trouble to make them understand first so that they would not be unaware of the truth and drag her down. Chapter 23:12, The Way of a Man, 3. As for the Chung family head and the others, they had been in power for a long time, so they naturally didn't need to be treated this way. They knew that one couldn't look at things only on the surface. As for those who had experienced it before, after hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, they started to seriously consider it. If they were in his place, they would definitely seek revenge as long as they could escape alive. However, Wu Cheng was a divine master. Even if they wanted to take revenge, the chances were slim. Thus, at this moment, everyone was extremely conflicted. They wanted to support Dongfang Yu's revenge, but they also felt that the chances of revenge were not high. Many people even put themselves in the shoes of Dongfang Yu and the others and felt that revenge must be taken. However, he had to think carefully about how to take revenge. Wu Cheng is a god master. I'm afraid it's impossible for you to take revenge on her, right? After a long while, an unremarkable-looking middle-aged man was the first to speak in a low voice. After he finished speaking, he quickly lowered his head, afraid that people would find out that he was the one who had said it. Where there's a will, there's a way. After hearing what she wanted to hear, Leng Ruoxue smiled and said, "We want to take revenge on Wu Xian not only for Dongfang Yu and the others. You've all heard that the previous divine master of the divine world was killed by Wu Xian. I know that you don't have any evidence after hearing what we said, right?" After Leng Ruoxue finished speaking, she deliberately paused again. Then, her beautiful eyes swept across the crowd. When she saw Huang Wei and Xia Yi, she paused for a while longer before she looked away. "Yes, I am." Seeing Leng Ruoxue looking at him, Xia Yi hurriedly said. When he had first heard that Sir Yu had died at the hands of God Lord Fogripple, he had been rather shocked. However, as a reverent god and a reverent god of the God Lord's estate, he naturally couldn't just make a baseless claim. As such, he needed evidence, because he truly couldn't believe that God Lord Fogripple would act against Sir Yu. After being in the God Lord's estate for so many years, he would be lying if he said he didn't understand the feelings God Lord Rivermist had for Sir Yu. However, it was precisely because he understood that he was shocked and found it hard to believe. Unless Leng Ruoxue could produce evidence, he could only assume that she was slandering God Lord Fogripple. In order to protect the reputation of the Divine Master's estate, Leng Ruoxue would definitely become the Divine Master's estate's enemy and be hunted down by them. His impression of Leng Ruoxue wasn't too bad, so he naturally didn't wish for such an outcome. Hence, he was even more looking forward to seeing if Leng Ruoxue could provide any evidence. When Leng Ruoxue heard his words, she didn't say anything. She merely waved her snow-white hand and a light screen appeared in midair. The light screen that had just appeared was completely empty. When Xia Yi saw this, he could not help but look at Leng Ruoxue in confusion. At that moment, the sound of fog appeared on the screen, and an image appeared. Everyone's attention was immediately drawn to the image on the screen. The video on the screen only played for less than half an hour before it disappeared. However, everything that was displayed in this short period of time was enough to prove that Leng Ruoxue's words were not false. Sir Ye's death was indeed caused by the mist ripple. For a long time after they finished watching the video, the scene was so quiet that even the sound of a needle falling to the ground could be heard clearly. Leng Ruoxue knew that this video had a huge impact on everyone. Hence, she patiently waited for them to regain their senses. After an unknown amount of time, everyone finally came back to their senses. However, even though they had come back to their senses, they were still extremely shocked. Previously, they had asked for evidence. However, now that the evidence was out, they did not know what to do. A considerable number of people became at a loss. Thanks now that they knew about this shocking secret, which had evidence to prove it, they could no longer deceive themselves and think that this matter was fake. However, it was precisely because there was evidence that they didn't know how to respond. So, they really regretted coming to the Yao clan's divine realm to get involved in this mess. If he didn't come here, did that mean he didn't need to know about these things? Of course, these were just the thoughts of some people. Even if they didn't come here, Leng Ruoxue would have announced this to the public. Now, they had only known about it in advance. Seeing that the time was right, Leng Ruoxue continued, "You've all seen the video just now. Now, what I want to say is that the master you in your eyes is my master, and it is only natural for a disciple to avenge his master. Therefore, the hatred between me and Fog cannot be shared. I'm telling you the truth of these things in the hope that you can be clear about what you should and shouldn't do. If anyone has been bewitched by Fog and wants to stand out, then come at me. Just wait. As for the reward offered by Rhyme Ice, if you're still interested, you can continue to do it. However, I won't show mercy to those who dare to offend me. Therefore, before you do something, you'd better think clearly whether money or life is more important." Leng Ruoxue's smile was extremely gentle, but the words she said were like knives, stabbing straight into everyone's hearts. The people present were a mix of good and bad, and naturally, not all of them were reasonable people. Hence, some of them still had their own plans in mind, hoping to profit from the battle between Leng Ruoxue and Wu Cheng. However, when they heard Leng Ruoxue's words, this small group of people also realized that Leng Ruoxue was not a pushover. However, if they were asked to do nothing, they would really be unwilling. At this time, someone couldn't help but ask, "Miss Leng, may I know the truth of the bounty?" When everyone heard this, they perked up their ears again to listen carefully. Since Leng Ruoxue had a grudge against Wu Cheng, the truth behind the bounty couldn't possibly be as Wu Cheng had said. Furthermore, the beast race was involved in this matter, so the truth would probably be even more thought-provoking, right? The truth is that someone betrayed Dongfang Yu and the others. Rhyme City colluded with the Beast clan and wanted to kill them. However, they were unexpectedly destroyed by us. They were angry, so they poured the dirty water on us. It's that simple. Leng Ruoxue explained in a few words. As soon as everyone heard this, the way they looked at the 4 elders of the Phoenix clan and the Dragon clan instantly changed. They were now looking at them with contempt. The faces of the 4 elders of the Dragon and Phoenix races instantly turned red when they received the disdainful gazes of the crowd. Elder Qin even roared with an unconvinced expression, "Leng Ruoxue, this is just your one-sided story. Do you think we'll believe you? What is a one-sided statement? You said that I attacked the beasts. Wasn't that just a one-sided story? Didn't many people still believe that? Why is it that now that I've told the truth, it has become your one-sided story, saying that no one will believe it? To be honest, I'm just answering other people's questions. As for whether you believe me or not, I really don't care." Leng Ruoxue said nonchalantly. "You?" Leng Ruoxue's words had driven Elder Qin mad. Just as she was about to flare up, she received a comforting gaze from the Yao family head, so she could only calm down. Then, everyone heard the head of the Yao family say, "Everyone, regardless of whether Leng Ruoxue's words are one-sided or not, I believe that everyone has their own judgment. So, let's not be entangled in this matter anymore. Right now, we have more important things to clarify, right?" When the crowd heard the Yao family head's words, they were all filled with question marks. However, Leng Ruoxue had a smile on her face. She wanted to see what evil tricks this old man was up to this time. Receiving everyone's expectant gazes, the head of the Yao family coughed a few times before continuing to ask, "Young Lady Leng, we have seen all the evidence that you have previously provided regarding Sir Yu being harmed by the Lord of Fog Ripple. Although it is not appropriate for us to comment on this, we are still quite interested in your identity. You claim to be Sir Yes' disciple. Do you have any proof?" After hearing what Master Yao had to say, Master Cheng couldn't help but whisper to Master Ning without waiting for Leng Ruoxue's reply, "Old man Ning. Was the head of the Yao family's old man kicked by a donkey? How did his identity match up to her now? You need evidence for everything? It's not that his head was kicked by a donkey. He doesn't even have a head." Master Ning coldly replied. His voice wasn't soft, so everyone present heard it clearly. In addition, they had also vaguely heard Master Cheng's whisper. Therefore, for a moment, everyone looked at Master Yao with strange expressions. The Yao clan head's face darkened even more at the words of the Ning and Cheng clan heads. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue also spoke up, "I don't have any proof, and Master didn't give me any identity token, so if the head of the Yao family doesn't believe me, I can't do anything about it. Believe it or not. It doesn't matter to me whether you believe it or not. In short, it's enough that Dongfang Yu and the others and my 2 senior brothers have acknowledged my identity." Leng Ruoxue's words were said in a carefree manner, causing anger to rise in the Yao family head's heart. However, before he had the chance to flare up, Song said, "Girl, I believe that you're that idiot Yes disciple. It doesn't matter if others believe it or not." After saying this, Song's dark eyes swept over the Yao family's patriarch several times. Immediately, the Yao family's patriarch's heart jumped into his throat and he couldn't help but swallow back the words he had yet to say. The head of the Yao family quivered and became well-behaved. The pressure that Song gave him was too great. He couldn't help but be afraid. Looking at the Yao family head who didn't dare to speak anymore, Leng Ruoxue nodded towards Song Qing without batting an eyelid, then continued, "Everyone, I don't care what you're thinking or what choice you'll make, But what I want to say is that it'll also issue a reward later, and I welcome everyone to participate. With that, Lung Ruoxue didn't give the crowd a chance to ask any more questions. She led the crowd and swaggered out of the Yao family's main residence just like when she came. The reward that she had mentioned was also announced very quickly. Chapter 23:13, Chain Reaction Triggered by the Bounty. 1. After Lung Ruoxue left, the people who remained at the scene could not help but stare at each other. Did they hear wrong? Lung Ruoxue said that she was going to put up a bounty? I wonder what she's offering a reward for? Although everyone was very curious, they were also very clear that the other party's reward must be extraordinary, because he had a grudge against the Divine Master. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts trembled again. Lung Ruoxue had warned them to think carefully. Which was more important, money or life? Then why did she tell them that she welcomed them to participate in her bounty? Wasn't that contradictory? As everyone thought of this, more and more cold sweat trickled down their foreheads. However, many of them understood what Lung Ruoxue meant. She was clearly warning them not to provoke her. However, they also did not have the guts to provoke God Lord Rhyme. In fact, in their eyes, God Lord Fog Ripple was even more difficult to deal with than Lung Ruoxue. After all, his status as God Lord Mist Ripple was right there. The entire divine world belonged to God Lord Fog Ripple. If they dared to oppose the God Lord estate, it would be like an egg hitting a rock. At that moment, many people understood that whether it was Lung Ruoxue or God Lord Fog Ripple, they could not afford to offend either of them. Thus, the majority of them decided to retreat. Let Lung Ruoxue, this tough egg, touch that rock, God Lord Rhyme. They didn't want to get involved in the matter between the two of them. Who cared who was right or wrong? They couldn't afford to offend them, but they could hide from them. After thinking through it thoroughly, the representatives of the major forces all expressed their desire to leave. No matter how much the depressed Yao family had tried to keep them, no one was willing to stay for a moment longer. Even the 4 elders of the Phoenix and Dragon tribes left with their tails between their legs like stray dogs. Of course, the other party definitely didn't think that he had slipped away. In their words, they had to send such important information back to their clan as soon as possible. As for the grudges between their clan and Lung Ruoxue, they were too weak to interfere. As a result, the Yao family head, who was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood, could only watch as the various factions left one by one. However, what made him feel rather gratified was that the people from the Alchemist Guild headquarters, the Weapon Master Guild, and the Ascender Alliance gave him some face and still stayed in the Yao family instead of immediately fleeing in a panic. As for the family heads of the 8 great divine regions who also didn't leave and still wanted to see how things would develop, they were completely ignored by him. However, before the head of the Yao family had time to rejoice, Jiang Ning informed him on behalf of the Alchemist and Weapon Masters Guild that they were also leaving. Then, the people of the Ascender Alliance also said the same thing. Without giving the head of the Yao family a chance to react, the 3 major forces left the Yao family with their respective groups of people. Old Man Yao, your guests have all left, so we won't stay any longer. Take care. Glancing at the obviously dumbfounded head of the Yao family, the head of the Cheng family said with a look of sympathy, "AI. What a pitiful old man from the Yao family." Before gathering everyone here, he definitely didn't think that this would be the result. However, who could he blame? He could only blame himself for being too nosy. Ever since he had known that little lass Lung Ruoxue, he had never seen anyone who went against her and gained a huge advantage from her. After the head of the Chung family finished speaking, he gave the other 6 family heads a look, and then the 6 of them left happily. In just a few minutes, the Yao family's mansion was completely silent, and the Yao family's head's face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. When the 9th elder of the Yao family saw this, he didn't even dare to breathe. Elder Yao Jiao was well aware that the patriarch was depressed, but wasn't he the same? However, other than feeling depressed, he didn't have any good ideas. The head of the Yao family had gone for wool and come home shorn. He had failed to achieve his goal, so he was naturally in a bad mood. And because of the low pressure he had created, the Yao family was once again immersed in a bone-chilling cold. Thanks. As for Leng Ruoxue and the others, after leaving the Yao family's main residence, they did not leave the Yao family's divine realm immediately. Instead, they found a house in the Yao family's main city to stay in temporarily. When the Yao family head heard the news, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, there was nothing he could do about it, because even if he wanted to chase those people away, he had to have the strength. However, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were not worried that the Yao family head would do anything behind their backs. Their daily task was to receive the 8 family heads from the Divine Realm and the uninvited guests from the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Of course, this uninvited guest was naturally referring to Jiangning. Ever since Mo Yen had introduced Jiangning to Leng Ruoxue, he had moved into the residence that Leng Ruoxue and the others were staying at. He could not even be driven away. Little Shuer, where are you? Leng Ruoxue, who was chatting with Uncle Long and the others in the garden, was speechless when she heard this familiar voice. Is this guy done yet? He knew where she was, but he still called her that. If he didn't know, he would think that she had gone missing. Just as she was thinking about this, Jiang Ning's handsome face appeared outside the garden's arched door. Then, a face that looked even more pitiful than a puppy's appeared beside Leng Ruoxue. Little Shuer. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue was ignoring him, Jiang Ning could only call out to her pitifully. He even deliberately dragged out his voice, causing everyone to have goosebumps. If you have something to say, then say it. Leng Ruoxue gritted her teeth as she suppressed the urge to give Jiang Ning a good beating. Little Shuer. Jiang Ning was embarrassed for a moment. Then he lowered his head and said in a low voice, I need a dragon's beard, can you help me? Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but facepalm. This guy? Couldn't he be a little more normal? She had known this guy for 2 days, but the first time she saw him in Jiangning was still deeply imprinted in her mind. It was as if it had just happened. She couldn't forget it even if she wanted to. She remembered that 2 days ago, Mo Yen and the cheapskate old ancestor had come to look for her and introduced them to Jiangning. However, from that moment on, she had been pestered by this annoying person. Moreover, the first thing he said when he saw her was, Little Shuer, you're going to take care of me in the future? This sentence had caused Leng Ruoxue to be dumbfounded, while the demon's face immediately darkened. Furthermore, the only thought in her mind at that moment was, this fellow is indeed a pretty boy. But soon after, Jiangning explained with a smile, Little Shuer, because of you, I didn't even give face to the Yao clan's patriarch. The other 2 vice presidents of our Alchemist Guild's headquarters have also been occupied by you, causing me to be as tired as a dead dog in the Alchemist Guild's headquarters. So, you have to compensate me, understand? Jiang Ning's following words left Leng Ruoxue in a state of confusion. What is this? What did she mean by the other 2 vice presidents had been occupied by her? What did she take from them? They were the ones who refused to leave, all right? How did she become the one hogging it and not letting go? Leng Ruoxue's heart was filled with resentment. The more she thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. The evil creature's cold aura became even more intense because of Jiang Ning's words. However, Jiang Ning was very good at comforting people. Before the evil creature exploded, he suppressed his anger in time. Chapter 23:14. The chain reaction triggered by the bounty. 2. Don't worry, Jiang Ning said. I'm just letting little Shuer take care of my herbs. I won't fight with you for her. Regarding this, Jiang Ning was very tactful. The evildoer's anger subsided a little after hearing what he said. However, he still warned, then you should be careful with what you say, don't let others misunderstand. This was the silent acknowledgement of Jiang Ning's existence. When Leng Ruoxue heard the demon's words, she really wanted to just faint. She didn't know, since when did the evildoer become so easy to talk to? However, when Jiang Ning heard the demon's words, he was very happy. He even nodded his head to show that he understood. However, other than the fact that he didn't know how to say anything that would make one's imagination run wild, the little Shuer that he had called out with a drawn-out voice was like a buzzing fly. It kept echoing in her ears every day. As such, whenever Leng Ruoxue heard these 3 words and heard Jiang Ning's voice, she would get goosebumps all over her body. It's too nauseating, isn't it? Just like now, Lung Ruoxue was covered in goosebumps. However, Jiang Ning was not aware of it. Instead, he felt good about himself and thought that he was acting cute in front of Lung Ruoxue. Of course, there was a possibility that he was doing this on purpose. Other than in front of Lung Ruoxue, Jiang Ning was very normal. This was especially true when Jiang Ning was fully focused on refining pills. He was more serious than ever before. As a result, everyone was more than happy to watch Jiang Ning play around when they had nothing to do. Although they would often get goosebumps, they couldn't deny that Jiang Ning had entertained them. As for Lung Ruoxue's depressed and helpless expression, it was something they loved deeply. Don't blame them for their lack of moral integrity. It was rare to see Lung Ruoxue's reaction. Furthermore, Jiang Ning always had his way, and it was Lung Ruoxue's fault for wanting to get rid of him quickly. This time was no exception. After Jiang Ning obtained the dragon's beard grass, the news was quickly spread to Lung Ruoxue and the others. Lung Ruoxue and the rest continued their previous conversation. Originally, everyone was discussing how the people of the divine realm would react after their side issued the reward. It should be known that the bounty issued in Lung Ruoxue's name had already been 2 days, and with the speed at which news spread in the firmament, that bounty should be known by everyone by now. The reactions of various parties would soon be gathered in their hands. Hence, they had to think of a way to deal with it in advance, in case of an emergency. However, the truth was just as Lung Ruoxue and the rest had expected. Once Lung Ruoxue's reward was announced, it quickly spread throughout the entire god world with an irresistible force. In an instant, the entire divine realm was in an uproar. Thanks, the reward was full of emotion, with pictures and the truth. It was highly realistic. After Lung Ruoxue made the video public, she did not make any subjective comments on it. Instead, she let the people of the firmament make their own judgments. However, Lung Ruoxue had made it very clear in the reward that she was the disciple of the previous divine lord, Lord Yu. It was only natural for a disciple to avenge her master. Hence, she would never let off the person who had killed her master. As for the person who had killed their master, even a fool would know who she was referring to. However, many factions did not think that Lung Ruoxue had the ability to fight against the divine lord's residence. Hence, a large number of people felt that Lung Ruoxue was overestimating her own abilities. However, it was undeniable that the rewards on Lung Ruoxue's wanted list were too attractive. The rewards were more than 10 times higher than the reward offered by the Divine Lord's manor. There were also countless treasures that were hard to find and couldn't be sold even if you had the money. For a time, many people were tempted. Unfortunately, though they were tempted, the various factions were all well aware that they could not accept this bounty. Only those who had killed God Lord Mistripple had the right to receive it, and in the entire divine realm, there was probably no one who had been able to kill God Lord Mistripple. As a result, the various factions were both depressed and at a loss as to what to do with this fat meat that they could see but not eat. However, this also proved one thing: Lung Ruoxue was extremely wealthy. Lung Ruoxue's nouveau riche-like behavior of showing off her wealth had also caused many people to secretly have ideas about her. Money moved people's hearts. To the people of the firmament, nothing was more attractive to them than heaven and earth treasures and top-grade crystals of various colors. Furthermore, Lung Ruoxue's conditions made them yearn for this wealth more than they could ever hope to obtain. As such, there would naturally be some ignorant people who would think of other ideas and take risks out of desperation. Hence, for a time, the various major factions had split into several different voices. Some people hoped to not provoke either of them. Whether it was the Divine Master's estate or Lung Ruoxue, they could not afford to offend either of them. Hence, they might as well act as if nothing had happened and do what they were supposed to do. Of course, most of those who had such thoughts had been to the Yao clan's divine territory and experienced the torture that Lung Ruoxue had arranged. The fear they had for Lung Ruoxue was not something that outsiders could understand. Hence, they naturally hoped to stay as far away from Lung Ruoxue as possible. They definitely did not want to take the initiative to give themselves up to her. However, They had obviously underestimated the huge attraction of Lung Ruox's bounty. The wealth on it was impossible not to be tempted. Hence, the disharmony and suicidal voices within the various large factions were no longer something they could control. Those who were envious of Lung Ruox's reward had already lost their rationality and treated Lung Ruoxue as a piece of fat meat that was at their fingertips. However, Lung Ruox's conditions were too harsh. In the entire firmament, there was almost no one who could fulfill them. Therefore, they could only use underhanded means to get their hands on those treasures. This underhanded method was nothing more than working together with Fog Ice to deal with Lung Ruoxue. After the matter was settled, they would naturally have a share of the items on Lung Ruox's bounty. In the immortal realm, there were definitely many people who had such thoughts. There were even many forces that had secretly sent people to the Divine Master's estate to negotiate with the Mist in order to gain the upper hand. Of course, other than those who had designs on Lung Ruoxue and those who did not want to get involved in the feud between Lung Ruoxue and Wu Jing, there were a small number of people who chose to observe and maintain a neutral stance for the time being. Their thoughts might seem very stable, but they had never thought that regardless of whether Lung Ruoxue or Fog Ripple won, would the two of them accept someone with an unclear position? However, at this moment, they felt that this was the best choice. In the Divine Master's palace in Fog City, sitting high on the throne, Wu Luan, dressed in red, looked at the reward placed in front of her. Her beautiful face was expressionless, but her heart was already raging with anger. Damn it! She didn't think that Lung Ruoxue would dare to reveal everything. Could it be that that wretched girl wasn't afraid that he would stake everything on her to kill her? Wu Jing was very confident that if she really wanted to get rid of Lung Ruoxue, even Song, who was by Lung Ruox's side, would not be able to save her. Chapter 23:15. The Chain Reaction Triggered by the Bounty, 3. This was because Wu Xiao knew that Song couldn't easily attack her, just like how she couldn't hurt Song. Unless it was absolutely necessary, the two of them wouldn't become mortal enemies. This point, even though Ripple Mist knew that Song was on Lung Ruox's side, she was still certain. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bided her time and tolerated Lung Ruox's existence. But now that Lung Ruoxue had revealed all her secrets, she felt that there was no longer a need for her to hold back. Otherwise, wouldn't those people from the God world think that she was easy to bully? After Lung Ruoxue revealed the truth, her reputation would be greatly affected. Although the people in the Divine Master's estate were still respectful to her, she knew what those people thought of her. She could even sense that Lung Ruox's bounty would definitely attract some old fogies who had not shown their faces for a long time. And those damned old fogies would naturally not be on her side. Thinking of this, Wu Yen was deeply conflicted. The hatred he had for Lung Ruoxue grew even deeper. That damned Lung Ruoxue. Why can't you just stay in the land of demons and live your life? Why do you have to go against me? The more Wu Jing thought about it, the more she hated it. In the end, her beautiful face was somewhat distorted. When the servant who had been serving her saw this, he was so scared that he trembled like a fallen leaf in the cold wind. With a glance from the corner of her eyes, she rebuked with a look of disdain, "Get down." Hearing this, the servant's face immediately turned pale and he scrambled out of the hall. Wu Cheng's mood became even worse. At this moment, the anger in her heart and her hatred towards Lung Ruoxue had all gathered together. It was like a small river had turned into a vast ocean. She could not control it no matter what. While she hated Lung Ruoxue for opposing her, she had never thought about why Lung Ruoxue would do this. If she had not made the first move, how could Lung Ruoxue possibly have retaliated at this moment? After all, this wasn't the best time for Lung Ruoxue to face her head-on. Unfortunately, Wu Xian didn't think about these things at all. She was born a selfish person who only had herself in her heart. Naturally, she would do whatever was beneficial to her. At this moment, a black-clothed person strode into the hall. Only her most important confidant would dare to enter without any notice. As a result, when she saw the man in black, she actually revealed a rare smile. "How is it? What was the reaction of the beasts?" Without waiting for the man in black to speak, Wu Xiao asked impatiently, "Master, the magical beasts have yet to respond to Lung Ruox's bounty. However, according to what I know, the Phoenix King, the Dragon Emperor, and the Tiger King are also in a terrible fix. Furthermore, the opposition within their clans is getting stronger and stronger. I believe that at this moment, they are not in the mood to make a big reaction to Lung Ruox's bounty. However, I have already instructed our spies in those 3 clans to act according to the situation. The man in black said honestly. Men, it seems like this is the only way for now. Alright, how are the reactions of the other forces in the divine realm? Wu Jing asked again. The other organizations are very interested in the items that Lung Ruoxue has offered as a reward, but don't worry, my lord. They don't have the life to get it. Hence, my lord doesn't have to worry about the existence of those small fries. What's more worrying is the 8 divine regions. The man in black said after some thought. The patriarchs of the 8 divine regions aren't fools. They won't easily go against me. Wu Yen said confidently. When the man in black heard her words, he naturally did not refute her and said, since that's the case, there's no need to worry, master. Yes, as long as it's not Song, I'm not worried. However, I'm angry that the good reputation that I've accumulated over the years has been destroyed by Lung Ruoxue in one day. Thinking of this, the coldness in Wu Yan's beautiful eyes became even colder. However, the black-clothed man did not know how to answer this. At this moment, it seemed that keeping silent was the best choice. At this moment, an attendant's voice suddenly rang out from outside the hall. My lord, a few forces have sent representatives to request an audience with you. Thanks what? When Wu Jing heard this, she raised her beautiful eyes and looked at the black-clothed man in front of her. Let them in. Usually, she would not meet these small characters, but today she wanted to see where these people came from. Especially after Lung Ruoxue had set up that bounty, she was even more interested in the purpose of these people's visit. Soon, the representatives of the forces who came to see him were invited into the hall. Ripple Mist glanced at the flattered representatives and asked with a faint smile, Is there something you want to see me for? When the representatives heard this, their faces revealed a difficult expression. Originally, they had wanted to sneak in to see God Lord Mist Ripple, but who knew that they would run into people from other factions? This made them feel even more awkward, as if their dirty thoughts had been exposed to outsiders. This made them feel extremely uncomfortable. It was a good thing that Lung Ruoxue did not know what they were thinking right now. Otherwise, she would definitely say that this was a typical example of someone who wanted to be a whore and wanted to have a good reputation at the same time. Since you dared to come, what else are you hiding from me? Or do you think that no one else will notice your little scheme? Did he really think that everyone else was a fool? As soon as Wu Xian saw the expressions of the people in front of her, she knew that what they were going to say seemed to be something shameful. However, as a god lord, he wouldn't give in to them. Thus, Wu Xiao impatiently said, If you have something to say, just say it. I don't have that much time for you to be in a daze. As soon as they heard this, they immediately put away their embarrassed thoughts, and then said their intentions one by one. After saying it, everyone's expression calmed down. Who asked them to have a common purpose? When Wu Yan heard this, she also laughed happily and praised, Don't worry, after we get rid of Lung Ruoxue, I will give you a portion of all her wealth. As for how much that portion was, it would be up to her to decide. When the few of them heard this, they immediately beamed with joy. Then, they said goodbye to Ripple Mist and went back to report. After they left, the black-robed man next to Ripple Mist looked at her worriedly and said, Master, are these people's words reliable? They wouldn't dare to lie to me. As the saying goes, men die for wealth and birds die for food. They were interested in Lung Ruox's reward, but they were not confident in killing me. Naturally, they would join me. Ha! That wretched girl Lung Ruoxue would never have thought that her bounty would have the opposite effect. After saying these words, Wu Yan's depressed mood was swept away. She was naturally happy that these forces were tactful. Although these guys were just small shrimps, sometimes, small shrimps could play a very important role. Lung Ruoxue would never have thought of that. The man in black echoed what she said, but for some reason, there was a trace of uncertainty in his heart. He kept feeling that they had overlooked something. In reality, How could Lung Ruoxue not know what kind of impact her bounty would have on the people of the God world? It was precisely because she knew that she had disregarded the worries of Uncle Long and the others and offered a huge reward. This was also a kind of test. She wanted to see how the people of the divine realm would react to such a high bounty. The reactions of those people would also determine her attitude towards them in the future. Hence, once the reward was announced, Lung Ruoxue was in the mood to watch a good show. In contrast, Uncle Long and the others were feeling much more heavy-hearted. They had lived in the divine realm for many years, so they were naturally very clear about the greed of some people in the divine realm. The high reward that Shuer had given them would definitely drive some people into desperation. At that time, they would not only be causing trouble for the mist ripple, but also for themselves. As long as they thought of this, Uncle Long and the others would sigh continuously. Every time she heard someone sighing because of this, Lung Ruoxue would have to helplessly console them and tell them not to worry. However, her consoling didn't seem to have much effect. Uncle Long and the others continued to look at her with bitter eyes and pitiful looks. In the end, she could only pretend to ignore it. A few days later, Lung Ruoxue and the others, who were still in the Yao family's divine realm, received news from the various large factions one after another. Of course, these news were all sent by the little silver rats who were in charge of monitoring the large factions. The accuracy of the news was rather high. Lung Ruoxue wasn't surprised at all when she saw the news. In fact, she appeared rather calm. In the garden, Uncle Long and the others looked at Lung Ruoxue, who was sitting on the stone chair as if nothing had happened and drinking tea leisurely. Finally, they could not help but ask, "Shui, although those forces are very interested in your bounty, they have sided with Rime Ice. Don't you have any thoughts about this?" They really wanted to know what Lung Ruoxue was thinking after she found out about this matter. However, it had been a few days since they received the news, and Lung Ruoxue had kept her mouth shut. No matter how much anticipation they used to look at this lass, she would play dumb as if she didn't understand what they meant. And Lung Ruoxue's reaction made them so anxious that they almost went crazy. Chapter 23:16. The Leopard Tribe Visits. 1. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she looked at Uncle Long and the rest, who were filled with anticipation. She said calmly, "What can I do even if I have an idea? I can't control the actions of those people. Everyone has their own aspirations. Before they take the initiative to provoke me, I can't make the first move to exterminate them, right? If that's the case, I'm afraid that my reputation as a devil in the divine realm will be solidified, and I might even incur the wrath of the divine realm. So, I can only swallow my anger and let them do as they please." These words made Lung Ruoxue's tone turn bitter. However, when Uncle Long and the others heard it, they felt. For a moment, they really wanted to impulsively tell Shuer, "Should we kill all those people?" As the saying goes, strike first and gain the upper hand. They couldn't let those jumping clowns hang around in front of their eyes all day long and add to their troubles, right? However, they quickly denied their thoughts. Lung Ruoxue's words sounded very resentful, but her expression was rather calm, as if she was talking about someone else's matters. As such, they naturally knew that Shuer did not care about those minor characters at all. However, the more insignificant a person was, the more likely it was that he would ruin things. Hence, Uncle Long said to Lung Ruoxue in a serious tone, "Shuer, although the small fish and shrimp outside can't be a big meal, they can still fill your stomach. So, I think you shouldn't dislike them. Otherwise, one day, because you ignored them, you might." Uncle Long deliberately said only half of his words because he believed that the smart girl Shuer would understand his worries. "Uncle Long, don't worry. I know what to do. Actually, it's not that I'm not going to clean up the small fish and shrimp, but there's too little of them and not enough to fill my stomach. So, I'm thinking of waiting until I've collected more before fishing them all up together." Lung Ruoxue said with a smile after listening to Uncle Long. "This is also good." Hearing this, Uncle Long was stunned for a moment before saying. However, Uncle Long couldn't help but feel a little depressed. Did they worry for nothing? Shuer already had plans? They knew that this girl didn't need them to worry about her, but they just couldn't control themselves. Uncle Long and the others were relieved and did not mention this matter again after they continued to glare at Lung Ruoxue with hidden bitterness. However, there was one more thing that made them feel a little depressed. The reason they issued that reward was originally to cause trouble for the Fog Ripple. After all, they did not expect anyone from the Divine Realm to be able to kill the Fog Ripple. Who was Wuhan? Even the current God Lords of the Divine Realm found it difficult to kill Fog Phoenix, let alone the other powers. However, when they thought about how the reward, which was clearly meant to make Fog Ripple uncomfortable, had instead caused trouble for them, their hearts clenched together in grievance. In reality, they were the ones who liked to be sentimental. The heartless Lung Ruoxue did not take this matter to heart at all. In her opinion, in the entire divine world, no one could be her opponent except for Wu Cheng. Even if all those forces joined forces, she could destroy one of them and two of them. She had this kind of confidence. This confidence of hers wasn't without restraint or reaching beyond her grasp, because she did have the strength to do so. Although her current strength was only at the level of a divine emperor, even if her opponent was a reverent god, she would definitely have the strength to fight. Unfortunately, he was too concerned. Thanks, Uncle Long and the others were so worried about her that they had forgotten about her strength. However, this was also because Uncle Long and the others cared about her. Therefore, she was very touched by their anxiety. However, Lung Ruoxue didn't want Uncle Long and the others to be so nervous and sigh all day long. Hence, she could only think of ways to find something for them to do. For example, she arranged for them to visit the Yao family. Why are we going to the Yao family? Hearing Lung Ruoxue ask them to go to the Yao family, Uncle Long and the rest were puzzled. Their relationship with the Yao family wasn't good enough for them to be able to move around as they pleased, right? Besides, if the head of the Yao family saw them now, wouldn't he want to eat them? Visiting. Lung Ruoxue repeated with a faint smile. We know that you're going to visit, but what we're asking is, why did you go to the Yao family to visit? Seeing that Lung Ruoxue was playing dumb, Uncle Long had no choice but to point it out. No reason. Isn't it normal for us to stay in the Yao family's divine domain temporarily and build a good relationship with the Yao family head? So, please send my regards to him, and remember to tell him to take care of his health and not to work too hard. Oh, and tell him to come to me if he needs money. I'll arrange an easy and profitable job for him. Lung Ruoxue said matter-of-factly. However, when Uncle Long and the others heard this, they couldn't help but mutter to themselves. The Yao family head definitely wouldn't be willing to build a good relationship with them. As for asking him to take care of his health, it would probably be too much. It would be good if the old man didn't have a heart attack when he saw them. How could he take care of his body? Now, they were very suspicious. Was Shui really trying to get them to come to the Yao family to build a good relationship with them? It didn't look like it at all. Instead, it seemed like he was deliberately going to the old man's house to anger him. Oh. It had to be said that Uncle Long and the others were not completely mesmerized by Lung Ruoxue's words. Lung Ruoxue had asked them to visit her because, other than the fact that it was a bit of an exaggeration to build a good relationship with the other party, she still had other intentions. But more importantly, she wanted to test the Yao family's old man's attitude. Even though both Green Vessel and Tsang knew about the current situation of the Yao family, sending someone over would lower the Yao family head's guard and anger him at the same time. This way, the old man of the Yao family might be driven to desperation. Otherwise, the old man would have kept his eyes closed and not moved, which made her feel quite helpless. It should be known that it had been several days since her bounty was issued. Some of the small and medium powers had already taken action. The other 6 patriarchs of the 8 great divine regions had also visited her to express their goodwill. Although on the surface, they shouldn't be participating in the battle between her and Wu Yen, these patriarchs should stand on her side at the critical moment. Of course, she did not care even if they had sided with Rime Ice. However, Lung Ruoxue believed that no one with a brain would be willing to make an enemy out of her just for the rewards on her bounty. He would not want to join forces with Wu Cheng. It was the wisest thing to be on good terms with her. After all, since she dared to show those items, how could she be afraid of being targeted? Among the 8 divine regions, only the Yao family, which had been lively all this time, didn't have any movements. Since the Yao family had not come to look for her or sent anyone to look for Rhyme, Lung Ruoxue felt that she could urge the old man from the Yao family to make his position clear. However, she naturally wouldn't personally visit him. Uncle Long and the others, who were sighing all day long, naturally became the best candidates. After that, Lung Ruoxue sent Uncle Long and the rest out of the house. He turned back to look at the tightly shut door. Uncle Long and the others were almost pushed out of the door. He was dumbfounded for a moment. Did Shuer despise them? Well, alright. They should go to the Yao family. Chapter 23:17. The Leopard Tribe Visits, 2. With that thought in mind, Dongfang Yu, Dongfang Lin, and the others walked toward the Yao family's main residence with Uncle Long in the lead. When they arrived at the Yao family's main residence, Uncle Long and the others walked straight into the Yao family's living room without anyone's notice. Then, they ordered the servants to serve tea and snacks and began to eat as if no one was around. The servants of the Yao family who were watching this scene from afar were angry and resentful at Uncle Long and the others' rudeness, but the impression that Uncle Long and the others had left on them when they came to the Yao family was too deep. As soon as the servants saw Uncle Long and the others, they immediately cowered. What else could he do? These people were getting more and more barbaric. If he didn't satisfy their requests, he would definitely be the one getting beaten up. Because the Yao family's head butler, who had been beaten up last time, was still lying in bed. That was definitely an afterthought. At that time, he looked alive and kicking, but not long after, he couldn't make it. Everyone was afraid that they would end up like the Yao family's head butler, beaten to the point where they couldn't even take care of themselves. Therefore, they all put on an extremely obedient appearance. If they were told to go east, they would definitely not dare to go west. Suddenly, the servants saw a middle-aged man waving at them. After a few rounds of pushing, an unlucky man was pushed out and fell directly at the feet of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man who was waving at them was Uncle Long. Uncle Long looked at the servant who had fallen in front of him with his limbs spread wide open, and his forehead was immediately covered with black lines. He smiled and teased, "No need to bow, I'm not your family's ancestor. What instructions does Senior have?" The servant couldn't smile at Uncle Long's words, nor was he in the mood to joke with him. Instead, he cried and choked. Of course, he knew that this person wasn't his ancestor, but he didn't want to fall in front of this person. He was pushed out by others, all right? Even if he wanted to get up now, he couldn't move, because he was so scared that his legs were weak, and he couldn't use any strength at all. Orders? I just want to ask you, why hasn't your family head come yet? Could it be that he was not up yet? Or could it be that you overindulged yourself yesterday and can't get up today? Uncle Long asked curiously. I'm coming. The servant didn't need to answer. A voice that spoke through gritted teeth was heard after Uncle Long's words. The person who spoke was the Yao family's head, who had arrived late. At this moment, the head of the Yao family had a sullen face and an extremely unwilling expression, as if he had been raped. Seeing him like this, Uncle Long couldn't help but burst out laughing. Haha. Yao family head, why do you look like you are constipated? Did you not eat or sleep well these few days? Uncle Long asked with a big laugh. I've had a good rest. The Yao family head gritted his teeth so hard that they creaked. The anger in his heart was surging towards his heart. Originally, he wanted to explode, but after seeing the people sitting in the living room, he quieted down. Thanks fuck. There were at least 5 Reverend God-level experts in the living room. What was this? Apart from Dongfang Lin, who was slightly weaker, he probably wouldn't be able to defeat any of them. This fact infuriated the head of the Yao family, but the situation was more pressing than he could handle, so he had no choice but to swallow his anger. After taking a seat in his chair, the head of the Yao family suppressed his anger and asked, "Why have the few of you come to the Yao family?" "It's nothing. I just came to see you and chat with you," Uncle Long said with a smile. Chat my ass. The Yao family head didn't think that he had anything to say to these hateful fellows. If these people didn't come to anger him, he would be Amitba. Why would he even bother to chat with him? Wasn't that a weasel paying a New Year's visit to a chicken? It had to be said that the head of the Yao family was very cautious of Uncle Long and the others. Moreover, although he hated these people, he knew that he had been very well behaved recently and had not provoked them. Therefore, he could not figure out the purpose of these people's visit. This also made him quite conflicted and deeply troubled him. We don't seem to know each other very well, so there shouldn't be anything to talk about, right? After thinking for a while, the head of the Yao family said very implicitly, "It doesn't matter if we're not familiar, we'll be familiar if we chat. Besides, I don't think we're not familiar with each other. I think we're all very familiar with each other." Uncle Long said nonchalantly. Dongfang Yu and the others couldn't help but twitch their lips when they heard this. "That Uncle Long, can you not be so mushy? It would cause a misunderstanding." Dongfang Yu and the others pleaded helplessly in their hearts. Unfortunately, Uncle Long couldn't hear their thoughts and continued to say, "Little Yao, you already know about Shui Air's bounty, right? Are you interested in participating? As long as you can get rid of rime ice, all those things will be yours. I'm sure your Yao family needs those treasures, right?" Even a thick-skinned person like the head of the Yao family couldn't help but fall silent at this. His Yao family truly did need those things, but he did not have the ability to kill God Lord Fog Ripple. He didn't have the guts to do so, so he didn't need to think about the reward. Originally, he could also choose to rely on rime ice like some small and medium-sized forces who were not afraid of death. However, as the head of the Yao family, one of the 8 great divine regions, no matter how low his character was, he still had his own pride. If he was not forced, how could he be willing to find himself a master? Wouldn't that be looking for trouble? He didn't want to act according to other people's mood. That was why the head of the Yao family had yet to make a move even after Leng Ruoxue's bounty was out. Furthermore, he no longer thought that Leng Ruoxue was a soft persimmon that anyone could squeeze as they pleased. With Tsang by that wretched girl's side to protect her, even God Lord Rime couldn't do anything to her, much less him, the head of the Yao family. With Tsang Do, he admitted that his body was not as hard as the walls of the God Lord's estate. Hence, he no longer dared to have any designs on Leng Ruoxue. However, this did not mean that he had learned his lesson. Once the right opportunity presented itself, he would be more than willing to throw stones at Leng Ruoxue when she was down. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had to have the opportunity. Just like now, Leng Ruoxue was going against the Divine Master's estate. This was a good opportunity for him. However, he wasn't stupid enough to clearly state which side he was on. If he did, he would be in a very passive position if he made the wrong choice. It had to be said that the head of the Yao family was very self-aware. He was also a cunning old fox. He knew that the current situation was unclear, so he naturally didn't want to make a choice now. In simple words, he was just waiting and watching. Now, he had a rough idea of the purpose of Uncle Long and the others' arrival. He knew it. These people definitely wouldn't come here without a reason. They must have come to see him to rope him in. The head of the Yao family's mind was spinning as he thought to himself. Fortunately, Uncle Long didn't know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would definitely scoff at him and tell him that he was thinking too much. Chapter 23:18 The Leopard Tribe Visits, 3. But now, the head of the Yao family felt that he had already taken the initiative, so he deliberately muttered to himself for a long time before slowly opening his mouth. "Uncle Long, to tell you the truth, I'm really interested in the reward on Miss Leng's bounty. However, I know very well that I have no fate with those things and they are not something I can dream of. So, I can only look at the bounty." After the head of the Yao family finished speaking, a regretful expression appeared on his face to prove that he was truly regretful. However, Uncle Long didn't have much of a reaction to his words. Instead, he suggested with a faint smile, "You can also learn from other forces." "Eh? What are you going to learn?" the head of the Yao family asked in a daze. "Learn from them and join Rime Ice." Yao family head, "The good things in my Shui heir's hands are definitely not just those on the bounty. Those things are just a drop in the ocean for her. So, as long as you join hands with Wu Yen and get rid of Shui, won't you be able to pick any of Shui heir's treasures?" Uncle Long said in a light voice, as if he was talking about someone else's business. Dong Fengyu and the others were even more embarrassed. Uncle Long, you're still coming? What are you doing now? You'll be satisfied if you provoke the Yao family head to stand on Rime Ice's side, won't you? Dong Fengyu and the others broke out in a cold sweat for Uncle Long's idea. However, the head of the Yao family, who also heard this, broke out in a cold sweat and was frightened. At this moment, he was not thinking about how many treasures Lung Ruoxue had. Uncle Long was just testing him. That's right, he was testing him. She wanted to test if he would choose to be Lung Ruoxue's enemy because of the huge wealth in her hands. Actually, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't tempted by Lung Ruoxue's treasures. Many of the good things in Lung Ruoxue's hands were contributed by the Yao family. He had always felt the pain in his heart. Would he not want it back? However, it was not easy for him to put his thoughts into action. Sometimes, no matter how many natural treasures or top-grade crystals you had, what was the use of losing your life? He did not believe that he would be able to snatch those items back from Lung Ruoxue's hands without any injuries. Even if he was working with Wu Jing, he still did not think that robbing Lung Ruoxue would be an easy task. Somewhere in the bottom of his heart, he even had a different thought. He was afraid that Wu Xian would not be able to touch Lung Ruoxue easily. If that was the case, he couldn't join hands with Wu Yan. Otherwise, he would definitely be the one in trouble. At this moment, the head of the Yao family was extremely clear-headed and rational. Therefore, after sensing that Uncle Long was testing him, he quickly said, "I know my own limits. Our Yao family will not get involved in this matter." AI. That's such a pity. Uncle Long sighed when he heard this. Regret? What was there to regret? The head of the Yao family really wanted to ask, but he felt that he shouldn't be meddlesome. The most important thing was to find a way to quickly send away these pestilence gods. However, Uncle Long and the others didn't plan to leave at all. Instead, they really pulled the head of the Yao family to talk about other things. After a long time, the sky was getting dark, and Uncle Long and the others reluctantly left. Before they left, Uncle Long patted the Yao family's head on the shoulder and told him, "Little Yao Yao, I'll be back." Upon hearing this, the Yao family head's face immediately darkened, while the servants of the Yao family all turned pale. All of them had long faces, and they were all wailing in pain in their hearts. "Why did you still come? Please don't come again." They couldn't afford to welcome him. However, Uncle Long didn't care about their reactions. He led the group of people and turned to leave. "Master," the servant sobbed as he watched Uncle Long and the others leave, his eyes full of pleading. "Don't let them come again." The head of the Yao family understood what he meant, but there was nothing he could do. "I've decided to go into seclusion. I won't see anyone who comes to find me in the future." After taking a few deep breaths, the head of the Yao family instructed his servant. After he finished speaking, the head of the Yao family directly left the dumbfounded servants behind and returned to his own residence. Only a few petrified servants were left on the scene. After Uncle Long and the others returned to their own residence, they were in a good mood. Before they could reach the garden, Uncle Long's voice was heard, "Shuai, we're back." Thanks Lung Ruoxue, who was sitting in the garden, was speechless when she heard the noise. She knew that Uncle Long and the others had returned, so there was no need for them to emphasize their presence. While he was thinking about this, Uncle Long and the others had already arrived. "Uncle Long, didn't the Yao family ask you to stay for dinner?" Lung Ruoxue asked curiously when she saw that Uncle Long and the others had returned a little early. "No, I didn't. He can't wait for us to leave. Why would they ask us to stay for dinner?" Uncle Long said helplessly. "The Yao family's old man treated us like the plague and discreetly chased us away several times. However, we always pretended to be ignorant and sat in his living room shamelessly. After we left, he would probably cheer." Dong Fonglin added in a serious manner. "He." When she heard this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh. She had just heard from Yao Tsang that the head of the Yao family didn't cheer at all, but claimed that he was in seclusion. "By the way, Shuai, I've asked the old man from the Yao family. He said that he won't join the Rime Ice sect." Uncle Long reported. "Oh." Lung Ruoxue nodded. Then, Tsang's words rang in her heart. After hearing it, Lung Ruoxiu's face darkened even more. She had heard the conversation between Uncle Long and the head of the Yao family from Tsang and couldn't help but sigh. Uncle Long was really too powerful. Uncle Long, since the Yao family didn't have much of a reaction to my bounty, let's pack up and return to the demonic land tomorrow. After some thought, Lung Ruoxiu spoke again. Initially, she wanted to wait for the Yao family's reaction and see if there was a need to deal with them. Who knew that the Yao family head would actually be afraid and hide? Since that was the case, she could only return to the residence. When everyone heard this, they were leaving. They immediately couldn't help but cheer. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxiu felt even more helpless. It seemed like these guys had long wanted to go home. The next morning, Lung Ruoxiu and the rest quietly left the Yao family's main city. However, when the Yao family found out that Lung Ruoxiu and the rest had left, they had already left the Yao family's territory. The moment Lung Ruoxiu and the rest left, the Yao family celebrated as if it was the new year. However, the head of the Yao family, who had long since entered closed-door cultivation, was completely unaware of this. Even if the elders of the Yao family wanted to inform him, they could not contact their own head, so they could only give up. When Lung Ruoxiu and the rest were still in the Yao family's territory, their journey was relatively peaceful. However, once they left the Yao family's divine territory, they realized that the number of small fish and prawns that came to their deaths had increased. However, the small fries who came to die were obviously here to explore the way because these people were generally not strong and could not take a beating. Every time one of them came out, they would be able to clean up those people. However, as time passed, Lung Ruoxiu and the rest would also feel depressed. If this happened once or twice, they wouldn't mind. However, when this happened more and more, and they had to deal with this kind of assault team every day, no one would be happy. Moreover, some of the attackers were actually beasts. This fact had completely enraged Lung Ruoxiu. After a discussion, they decided that they couldn't let this continue. Therefore, when they encountered the attackers, they planned to spend some effort to get rid of the forces that those people were in. With this thought in mind, Lung Ruoxiu and the rest naturally would not show any mercy to the small fry that came to cause trouble. The factions that they were in suffered an unprecedented blow. The entire foundation of their faction was completely uprooted from the firmament by Lung Ruoxiu and the rest. When Lung Ruoxiu and the rest were doing this, they did not hide it. Instead, they openly allowed the news to spread throughout the entire God world. However, there were too many people in the immortal realm, so they did not know how the rumors would spread. However, one thing was for sure. After Lung Ruoxiu and the rest had massacred the people, Lung Ruoxiu and the rest's reputation for being vicious and evil had become even more well known. Of course, the Divine Master's estate had also contributed to this. For a time, the God world had mixed opinions about Lung Ruoxiu. Those who supported her were naturally those who were closer to her. As for those who called her the greatest scourge of the divine world, they were basically incited by the God Lord Manor in secret. However, Lung Ruoxiu wasn't someone who would care about what others said. Just like that, under the strange, shocked, and fearful gazes of the people from the God world, Lung Ruoxiu and her group swaggered back to the land of demons. After staying in the land of demons for a long time, Lung Ruoxiu and the others felt a sense of closeness to their home. The beasts in the land of demons were also very enthusiastic about Lung Ruoxiu and the others' return. Furthermore, Lung Ruoxiu was surprised to see the leopard clan's members among the crowd of beasties. Seeing that Lung Ruoxiu was looking at him, the leopard clan leader's face turned red. Then he stood out from the crowd of beasties and said softly, "Little girl, we've moved here to settle down. You will not welcome us, will you?" The old leopard was a little worried. Now that the beast race and Lung Ruoxiu were at loggerheads, what if this little girl didn't want to see them? "Of course, you're welcome," Lung Ruoxiu said with a smile. She did not let old leopard struggle for long. When she was at odds with the Divine Master's estate and the Beast clan, Old Leopard was still willing to lead his clansmen to visit her. Of course, she was very happy. This was enough to show that their friendship had not been affected by the outside world in any way, and it also proved that she had a good eye for beasts. Chapter 23:19. The White Fox Tribe's Number 1 Fox. 1. After hearing Lung Ruox's words, Old Leopard's heart that had been hanging in the air finally settled down. In reality, when the conflict between Lung Ruoxue and the magical beasts first appeared, the Old Leopard, who thought he understood Lung Ruox's character, did not believe the rumors outside. Although many magical beasts had made their statements, the Leopard clan had not made any moves. He had even secretly sent his clansmen to the land of demons to ask Lung Ruoxue about the situation. However, at that time, Lung Ruoxue seemed to be in closed-door cultivation. The people he sent were too embarrassed to ask Uncle Long and the others, so they asked the magical beasts in the land of demons. They learned that those magical beasts had firmly chosen to stand on Lung Ruox's side. The Leopard clan that Old Leopard was in also secretly made up their mind to support Lung Ruoxue. The members of the Leopard clan believed in their judgment of people. Their junior leopard was indebted to Lung Ruoxue and she was a trustworthy human. Hence, they naturally chose Lung Ruoxue. However, at that time, the Leopard clan did not appear to be too close to Lung Ruoxue and the others. However, in private, it had sent many of its clansmen to the land of demons. Even though the Leopard clan's clansmen did not visit Lung Ruoxue and the others every time they came to the land of demons, their private interactions with the magical beasts in the land of demons were still discovered by the other magical beasts. With this discovery, the days of Old Leopard and the rest of the Leopard tribe became much harder. In addition, the Leopard clan did not issue any joint statement regarding Lung Ruox's previous attack on the magical beasts. This was also why some of the magical beasts who had long disliked them treated them as aliens. They would even throw dirty water on them from time to time, saying that they were in cahoots with Lung Ruoxue. They said that they were traitors of the beast race. It admitted that they were on Lung Ruox's side. However, the Leopard clan had always been careful in their actions. Yet, some of the beast clans who had a grudge with the Leopard clan had discovered some clues. This fact made the Old Leopard rather depressed. However, it also knew that there was no concrete evidence for the words that the other party had spread. It was estimated that they had found out that they had gone to the land of evil demons, so they had added some embellishments and said some things that were not beneficial to the Leopard clan. However, even if these words were largely watered down, it still had a significant impact on the Leopard clan's life. This was especially so in their previous territory. The neighboring magical beasts had now joined forces to ostracize them. The Leopard tribe's tribesmen were attacked by other magical beasts from time to time, and they were even scolded as traitors of the magical beasts. Every day, they would be cursed at and attacked as scheduled. As time passed, the Leopard tribe finally could no longer stay in their original territory. In fact, according to the Old Leopard's original intention, the more those beasts ostracized them, the more they should live there. After all, the Leopard clan had been operating there for tens of millions of years, and it was their home. No matter how good other places were, the meaning to them was different. However, the adult leopards could bear it, but the little guys in the clan could not. Hence, Old Leopard, who had no intention of seeking shelter with Lung Ruoxue, could only thicken his skin and come over. At least, the beasts in the land of evil demons were friendly to them. Seeing that they intended to settle down in the land of evil demons, the forces of the beast race in the land of evil demons showed unprecedented enthusiasm and even enthusiastically helped them build a residence. This also made Old Leopard, who had been worried that he would not be welcomed before coming, completely relieved. Now that he saw that Lung Ruoxue also welcomed them, Old Leopard naturally felt more at ease. It was very clear about the position that this little girl, Lung Ruoxue, held in the hearts of the magical beasts in the Devil's Land. Thinking of this, Old Leopard said with embarrassment, "Little Schwer, our leopard tribe didn't plan to come here at first. We'll stay in our original territory so that we can know in advance if there's any sign of trouble in the beast tribe and send you a message. However, now that the leopard tribe has been ostracized, we can't stay here any longer, especially the junior leopards in the tribe who are bullied every day. So, we have no choice but to go along with their wishes and confirm our reputation as traitors of the beast tribe by coming to the Devil's Land." The Old Leopard explained. The members of the leopard clan were too honest and were not suitable to be spies. Otherwise, they would not have been bullied and left their hometown. Thanks. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue smiled and consoled. Patriarch Bao, how can you be traitors? The real betrayer of the magical beasts should be the ones who have ostracized you. What? When Old Leopard heard Lung Ruoxue's words, he could not help but widen his leopard eyes. Its ability to understand was a little poor, so it didn't understand what this little girl meant. Have you guys heard about my bounty? Lung Ruoxue asked, pretending to be mysterious. Well, who wouldn't know about such a big thing? The old leopard nodded his head in a daze. His eyes were filled with admiration as he looked at Lung Ruoxue. She was Master Yes' disciple. What a noble status. Since you've heard about it, you naturally know my identity. Tell me, who were the beasts loyal to in the past? Lung Ruoxue asked. Of course it's Master Yu. Lord Yes' position in the hearts of the beast clans is irreplaceable. Yes, Master. Old Leopard said with excitement on his face. Since that's the case, then isn't it only natural for you to be on good terms with me? Don't forget, I'm Master Yes' disciple. That's why you're not traitors to the Beast Clan. The Beast Clan's traitors are those who betrayed Master and went against me. Lung Ruoxue reminded him with an evil smile. That's right. Our Leopard Clan is not a traitor to the Beast Clan. The real traitors are those who went against you, little girl, and slandered you. When the old leopard heard this, he immediately echoed loudly in a high-spirited manner. But then, he became listless again and said in a pitiful voice, Little girl, what's the use of saying that we're not traitors of the Beast Clan? In the eyes of many beasts with ulterior motives or those who don't know the truth, we are still traitors. Old Leopard was very reluctant to admit this fact, but this world was where the strong were respected. Even if Lung Ruoxue was Master Yes' disciple, the Beast Clan did not acknowledge that. In fact, in the hearts of many Beast Clans, Master Yu was Master Yu, and Lung Ruoxue was Lung Ruoxue. There was no relationship between them at all. Of course, unless Lung Ruoxue was able to display a power that would make all the other beasts fear her, or gain the approval of the 4 great beast kings, it would be difficult for Lung Ruoxue's identity to be acknowledged. Oh really? If that's the case, it looks like we can only use special methods to confirm that they're the traitors. After thinking for a while, Lung Ruoxue said coldly. A cold light flickered in her eyes, which made Old Leopard's heart jump and his little heart tremble. What was this little girl trying to do? Although he felt a little uneasy, Old Leopard still gathered his courage and asked, Little girl, what do you mean? Subdue them. Those who are willing to surrender, I welcome them. Those who aren't willing to surrender, I'll use force to suppress them. Let's start with the original territory of your leopard tribe. Lung Ruoxue said calmly. Didn't you say you were traitors? I'll let them see who the traitor is. Who will be the beastie who laughs last? Lung Ruoxue added. Chapter 23:20 The White Fox Tribe's Number 1 Beauty 2. Hearing these words, Old Leopard immediately broke out in a cold sweat. His heart trembled more and more and his legs became a little soft. This girl was going to start a war. For some reason, the old leopard pitted those beasts who wanted to go against Lung Ruoxue. At the same time, he was glad that he was wise enough to cling onto Lung Ruoxue. Otherwise, if they really fought, the combat power of Lung Ruoxue and the others was not to be underestimated. After glancing at Uncle Long and the others, Old Leopard's heart was strangely calm. It seemed that he still had to train. Look at all the people and beasts present. None of them had heard Lung Ruoxue's words and acted like a bear. All of them were calm and collected. He forced himself to calm down. After taking a few deep breaths, he slowly said, That, in my original territory, the most powerful beast clan was the Fox clan. Even though the Fox tribe is not as strong as us in terms of fighting power, they are too cunning. Honest beasts like us are not their match. To put it bluntly, the other party used their wisdom, while they were too lazy to play tricks. Therefore, they relied on brute force. Fox clan? The Snow Fox tribe? Lung Ruoxue asked with great interest. If she did not remember wrongly, it seemed that the beastie on her side had a grudge with the Snow Fox tribe. However, she had been very busy ever since she came to the divine world. Hence, she did not have the time to make a trip to the Snow Fox tribe. Now, it seemed like this was a good opportunity to settle some of the grudges on her side. No, it's the White Fox clan, the old leopard quickly explained. Then, afraid that Ling Ruoxue did not understand, he added, the status of the Snow Fox tribe in the divine realm is very high, second only to the Dragon tribe, the Phoenix tribe, the White Tiger tribe and the Qilin tribe. How could they possibly live in that little broken-down place of ours? Where do they live? Ling Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked curiously. The Snow Fox tribe loves the cold. Their base is located on the largest snow mountain in the immortal realm, the Longevity Mountain. They are neighbors with the White Tiger tribe. The Snow Fox tribe is also a vassal of the White Tiger tribe. Old Leopard explained. A vassal of the White Tiger race? Didn't the Snow Fox tribe have a very high status in the divine realm? He actually became someone else's subordinate? Chief Leopard, are your words watered down? Ling Ruoxue asked with a look of disbelief. No, I didn't. It was absolutely true. Right now, the Snow Fox tribe is indeed a vassal of the White Tiger tribe. This isn't a secret at all in the immortal realm. Otherwise, the White Tiger tribe would have long chased them out of the Longevity Mountain. Old Leopard said with certainty. So, the Snow Fox tribe is very weak now? Ling Ruoxue's eyes narrowed as she continued to ask. How should he put it? It could not be said to be very weak. However, the most important royal bloodline in the Snow Fox tribe was the purple-eyed Snow Fox. However, ever since the previous Fox King passed away, there were no more purple-eyed Snow Foxes in the Snow Fox tribe. Furthermore, the current Fox King's bloodline was not pure and he was unable to cultivate the Fox tribe's techniques to the highest level. Naturally, he was unable to restore the glory of the Snow Fox tribe in ancient times. As a result, the status of the entire Divine Realms Fox tribe had declined. He was the current king of the Snow Fox tribe. They even became the White Tiger race's vassals. Old Leopard said unhappily. Becoming a vassal of the Beast clan and acknowledging a human as their master were two different things. Thanks acknowledging a human as its master meant that it had acknowledged a human, and that human must have something extraordinary about him. However, in a situation where everyone was a magical beast, if they became a vassal of a magical beast, it would mean that a certain magical beast had completely abandoned its dignity and become a lackey of its own kind. Such a magical beast race did not have the pride of a magical beast race to speak of. Naturally, they would not receive the respect of other magical beasts. However, in the current divine realm, there were definitely many magical beasts who chose to become a vassal of a powerful beast for the sake of survival. Therefore, this trend seemed to be the general trend. Under the situation where everyone did that, there would be no distinction between who looked down on who. For some magical beasts who were unwilling to rely on the powerful, they would retain their dignity, but at the same time, their days in the divine realm would become more and more difficult, and they would be bullied and ostracized. However, no matter what the result was, it was the choice of each magical beast. Are purple-eyed snow foxes only important to the snow fox race? Ling Ruoxue couldn't help but ask after hearing what Old Leopard said. The snow fox is the king of the Fox clan. The purple-eyed snow fox is of utmost importance to the entire Fox clan. However, the current Fox clan does not have any purple-eyed snow fox at all. Therefore, the Fox clan has naturally declined. The Old Leopard was very patient, but when he saw the little fox in Ling Ruoxue's arms, his round leopard eyes instantly widened. This, the Old Leopard pointed his paw at the small and cute little fox in Ling Ruoxue's arms. It was snow white without a trace of mixed colors. He stammered and could not complete a sentence for a long time. What was this? It had just said that there were no purple-eyed snow foxes in the Snow Fox tribe, and this little girl had already created one for it. Was she trying to test the endurance of its heart? Alright, this girl had one. Seeing this tiny, palm-sized purple-eyed snow fox, the Old Leopard's heart had indeed been tested like never before. May, say hello to the leopard tribe leader. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the petrified old leopard and said with a face full of sympathy, She's just a little fox. Was there a need to be so surprised? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but mutter to herself. However, it was a good thing that old leopard did not know Lung Ruoxue's inner thoughts. Otherwise, he would be depressed to death. What did he mean by "isn't she just a little fox"? The one you're carrying in your arms is a purple-eyed snow fox, all right? That was the natural king of the fox race. He could command the entire fox race. More importantly, ever since the previous fox king had fallen in the divine realm, no purple-eyed snow fox had appeared. Therefore, it was impossible not to be surprised. Hello, I'm May. The May spoke very obediently. In fact, it knew the old leopard, but the old leopard had never seen it before. Hello. The old leopard was still stammering, but he was obviously calmer than before. However, his eyes were full of curiosity as he stared at the May without blinking. His eyes were full of surprise. The May was a little scared by the old leopard's stare and could not help but shrink into Lung Ruoxue's arms. She could not help but send a voice transmission to her master. Master, the way this old leopard looks at me is too scary. It better not have any thoughts about me. Otherwise, I won't let it go. It was not joking. However, when Lung Ruoxue heard the mice words, she couldn't help but smile indifferently and said, You're thinking too much. It was just too surprised by your species. What's so surprising about my breed? It's so rare to see. May Iran transmitted her voice to Lung Ruoxue with dissatisfaction. Her cute little face gradually fell and she was about to explode. However, at this moment, old leopard retracted his gaze. Chapter 23-21, The White Fox Tribe's Number 1 Beauty, 3. Little girl, is this little fox yours? Old leopard confirmed. Yes. Lung Ruoxue nodded. Do you want it to be the fox king? Old leopard asked excitedly. Of course, May will be the future king of our fox race. Before Lung Ruoxue could reply, another furious voice rang in old leopard's ears. Then, a huge snow-white figure appeared in front of everyone. You are, looking at the huge snow fox in front of him, the old leopard asked hesitantly. The snow fox looked familiar, but he could not remember where he had seen it. Snow shadow. Schwering glanced at the old leopard and said arrogantly. However, there was a small footprint on its snow-white fur, which destroyed its unattainable feeling and made it look a little funny. Schwering. Old leopard repeated the name and frowned. The name was so familiar. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration and shouted, Arg! Snow Shadow. Isn't Schwering the traitor of the Fox clan who was once wanted by the Fox King? You're the traitor. Your entire family is a traitor. Upon hearing this, Schwering was unhappy and shouted back. In the eyes of other beastie, my family is indeed a traitor. However, you've been wanted by the Fox clan throughout the divine realm. I didn't expect that you'd actually be hiding at this little girl's place. The old leopard exclaimed. Could he say that this place was a shelter for traitors? Who's hiding? I'm here in broad daylight, okay? Although the old leopard's tone of voice made Schwering a little unhappy, he still gave Lung Ruoxue a face and did not cause trouble for the old leopard on the spot. All right then. Looking at Snow Shadow's reaction, the old leopard wisely did not argue with it about this matter. Anyway, everyone knew it in their hearts. There was no need to be too jumpy. Seeing that he had won against old leopard, Schwering turned to Lung Ruoxue and said, May will definitely become the king of our fox race. Let's immediately set off to challenge the fox race. Upon hearing this, old leopard, Lung Ruoxue, and the rest fell silent. Lung Ruoxue and the rest were thinking that even if they wanted to challenge the Fox clan, they had to make some preparations first. On the other hand, old leopard's thinking was more pragmatic. He was afraid that it would not be completed in a short time if he wanted to challenge the Fox tribe. After all, the White Tiger tribe was still there to carry the burden. Unless they could take on the White Tiger race as well. However, that would be extremely difficult. One must know that the White Tiger race was one of the 4 great beast kings, and those 4 great beast kings had always been on good terms. If the 4 of them were to join forces, Even if Lung Ruoxue and the rest were heaven-defying, it would still take time to take care of them. This was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. However, looking at Shui Ying's reaction, he seemed to be in a hurry, as if the fox tribe would be his in the blink of an eye. Was it that simple? The old leopard did not agree with Shui Ying's impatient temperament. However, he did not say much in case this bad-tempered snow fox would vent its anger on him again. Anyway, he was just a bystander, so he would let the little girl worry about these things. Just as he was thinking about this, he heard Lung Ruoxue's voice. It's not impossible to pick a fight with the Fox clan, but I have to make preparations first. Give me some time. We'll leave the day after tomorrow. After hearing this, Old Leopard continued to be silent. In fact, it was more suspicious that it had heard wrong. The day after tomorrow, they would set off to pick the Fox tribe? What could he prepare in less than 2 days? However, looking at everyone's confident expressions, it felt that it was better not to spoil the mood. Otherwise, it might cause public anger. In this way, 2 days passed by in the curiosity of the old leopard. However, during this time, the old leopard's questions were not answered. Instead, it made the old leopard's heart itch more, as if a kitten lived in it. Faced with the old leopard's eager eyes, no kind person was willing to answer his questions. Besides, everyone in the house was so busy that their feet didn't even touch the ground. Only he thought that he was so free that his balls hurt. Otherwise, he wouldn't have let his thoughts run wild. Then Lung Ruoxue told Old Leopard that they could set off. The old leopard was still in a daze as Lung Ruoxue and the rest led him on the road. Their destination was, of course, his previous territory, Floating Cloud Mountain. The Floating Cloud Mountain was not too far away from the land of the evil demons. If they did not teleport, they would be able to reach there in 2 days. Hence, Lung Ruoxue and the others had already arrived after a long journey. In the heart of Old Leopard, the doubts were getting heavier and heavier. Were they on vacation? Or travel? Thanks, why couldn't it feel the tension before the battle? Or could it be that it was too agitated? Old Leopard was very depressed. The consequences were very serious. The price of this result was that while the others talked and laughed along the way, it remained silent. When they finally arrived at the Floating Cloud Mountain, Old Leopard finally saw a trace of excitement on his face. I didn't expect to revisit an old place so soon. Old Leopard sighed. Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but raise her beautiful eyes and asked indifferently, "Leopard Chief, is this the Floating Clouds Mountain?" "Yep. It's beautiful here, right?" The old leopard said proudly. "It's beautiful, but where's the mountain?" Lung Ruoxue asked speechlessly. She looked around and saw a dense forest made up of huge, lush trees. There were also a few clear streams flowing out from the forest. However, she could not see any mountains. It's been too long, and the mountain has long disappeared. The old leopard blushed and said embarrassedly, "There used to be a mountain here, but after living here for a long time, the tall mountain had become a small slope. Besides, there were many species of beasts living here, many of which were famous for their violence. The strong mountain couldn't withstand the long-term battles." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes and didn't say anything. She only fixed her gaze on the red-faced old leopard. "I'm telling the truth." Seeing this, the old leopard was so aggrieved that he almost raised his paw to swear. "All right then." Lung Ruoxue sighed helplessly. Even if there were mountains here in the past, they wouldn't have been that big. She didn't want to talk about whether there was a mountain, so she said directly, "Let's enter the forest. Leopard clan leader, lead the way." "And little girl, where are we going first? There are many types of beasts here, and many of them are quite powerful." Old Leopard asked. "Let's go to the white fox race first." Lung Ruoxue ordered. "All right." The old leopard nodded. The white fox tribe had a very high status in the Floating Cloud Mountain. If they were to incorporate the white fox tribe first, it would make many other beasts feel intimidated. Thinking of this, it was in a good mood, and its steps were a little light. The white fox race had played an important role in its expulsion from the Floating Cloud Mountain. Now, this old leopard had returned with a bear-like and high-spirited look. Why did it feel like it was exhaling its pride, like a fox exploiting a tiger's might? Although he thought this way, Old Leopard's pace did not slow down at all. The news of their group entering the Floating Clouds Mountain spread like wings to all the beasts living in the Floating Clouds Mountain. Within the White Fox race, a huge snow-white fox was lying on a green stone slab, enjoying the warm sunlight. When it heard the report from the fox tribe, the snow-white fox lazily closed its eyes and asked, "You said that the old leopard is back. You even brought some humans?" "Yes. Clan leader, those guys are coming in our direction. According to my guess, Old Leopard must have found some helpers and come back for revenge." The little fox reported with a face full of worry. Revenge? It was not impossible. However, I'm more interested in the background of those humans. You can go and investigate. The enormous white fox instructed. "Clan leader, there's a human woman among those people. She looks a little like Lung Ruoxue from the video." The little fox thought for a moment and decided to report the truth. "Lung Ruoxue? Are you sure?" The huge white fox squinted its eyes and laughed wildly in its heart. "Old Leopard, you can't blame others for calling you a traitor now, can you? You're the one who brought Lung Ruoxue back." "Yes." The little fox nodded her head. Seeing this, the huge snow fox immediately got up and instructed the little fox, "Go and inform the clansmen that we have a guest. Ask them to come with me to welcome her. Oh right, also spread the news that Lung Ruoxue has come to the Floating Cloud Mountain. I believe that many people and beasts will be interested in her news." The little fox nodded and immediately ran away. At this time, the huge snow fox shook its snow-white long fur and took out a comb from somewhere. After combing its long fur until it was as soft and smooth as silk, it even ran to the mirror not far away and looked at it. Then, it nodded in satisfaction and said with a somewhat narcissistic tone, as expected of the White Fox tribe's #1 beauty, "Look at my long fur, my beauty, my bearing, which fox can compare to me?" After mumbling to himself, the narcissistic White Fox tribe leader strode elegantly away from the bluestone slab she had just laid on and walked toward the main entrance with great confidence. By the time the White Fox clan leader arrived at the main entrance, the swift White Fox clan members had already formed a line, waiting for the proud White Fox clan leader to arrive. Chapter 23-22, Love at First Sight, 1. When the White Fox clan leader saw this, he did not forget to nod in satisfaction at his underlings. Then, one of the White Foxes tactfully brought out a reclining chair and invited their clan leader to rest on it. "Little 3, little 4, the old leopard and those humans are not here yet? This speed is too slow." After lying down, the White Fox clan leader asked the 2 white foxes who were serving beside her. "Not yet. Those humans are too weak and need to rest for a long time after walking a few steps. So, according to this subordinate's guess, they won't be able to arrive in a short time. Why don't King take a short nap?" A fox said with a fawning expression. What it meant by Lung Ruoxue and the rest being too weak and needing to rest after every few steps was that Lung Ruoxue and the rest were collecting herbs and admiring the scenery along the way. Therefore, it was naturally impossible for them to reach the White Fox clan's territory too quickly. Of course, they were also unaware that the White Fox clan's clan head was anxiously waiting for them. However, if Lung Ruoxue knew that the White Fox clan leader had been waiting for them anxiously, she would most likely ask, "Why are you in such a hurry? Was he in a hurry to die?" Lung Ruoxue and the rest were not in a hurry, forming a stark contrast with the White Fox clan leader's anxiety. However, the White Fox clan leader would not show it on his face. Otherwise, if the clan members knew, where would his dignity as the leader of a fox be? Therefore, after pondering for a while, the White Fox clan leader nodded and said, "Then I'll take a nap. Wake me up immediately when they arrive." Little 3 and Little 4, who were the 2 white foxes serving the White Fox clan leader, hurriedly nodded their heads. Then, the White Fox clan's foxes gathered around their clan leader and waited for Lung Ruoxue and the rest under the scorching sun. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest entered the Floating Clouds Mountain, it was still early in the morning. That was also the time when the herbs in the forest were the freshest. Many of the herbs still had clear dewdrops on them. There were also many alchemists in their group. Hence, when they saw these herbs, it was as if they were seeing their family. Although the herbs they saw along the way were only ordinary herbs, the amount of ordinary herbs used during alchemy was often the highest. Therefore, as alchemists, Jiang Ning and the others consciously bent down to collect these amiable herbs. When the others saw this, they did not urge them to hurry up. Instead, they helped to collect as usual. However, as the guide, Old Leopard was definitely not used to this situation. Seeing everyone bending down to pull the weeds from the ground, Old Leopard was all kinds of restless. The medicinal herbs in the eyes of the crowd were like weeds in the eyes of the Old Leopard and the other beasts. They had no use at all. Therefore, it could not understand Leng Ruoxue and the others. They were not treasures. Why did they need to mobilize all of them? Wantonly collecting? Could it be that these people came here to pull out the grass? Old Leopard had not forgotten the purpose of their trip, but Leng Ruoxue and the others had obviously forgotten. For a moment, the Old Leopard was extremely depressed. His face was full of sorrow. Occasionally, he would sigh and steal a glance at Leng Ruoxue and the others with his resentful eyes. However, Leng Ruoxue and the others were in the mood to collect herbs, so his expression was a waste. Thanks by the time Leng Ruoxue and the rest had collected most of the medicinal herbs along the way, the sky had already turned dark. She looked at the moon that hung shyly in the sky and heard the howls of the beasts from the forest. Leng Ruoxue asked for everyone's opinion. Should we continue or rest for the night and set off tomorrow morning? Tomorrow morning? It's dark now, and if we come across more herbs on the road, it'll be a problem to collect them. Jiang Ning was the first to express his thoughts. He was a man who was closer to herbs than to his own father. He would never allow a man to not collect herbs when he saw them, even if they were just ordinary herbs. Moreover, he had a great time collecting herbs along the way today. It should be known that he would not dare to step into a place where many beasts gathered. Even if he knew that this place had not been harvested and there were many herbs here, he would not come here for safety reasons. However, being with Leng Ruoxue and the rest today, his safety had increased greatly. Hence, he was definitely not willing to let go of such an opportunity. Furthermore, many beasts only recognized natural treasures and would not care about ordinary herbs at all. Hence, this forest had become a paradise for ordinary herbs. As an alchemist who had a greater demand for ordinary herbs, it was too difficult to make him give up after seeing what he needed. Most importantly, these herbs didn't belong to anyone. They only needed to spend some manpower and resources to collect them. As a result, Jiang Ning had completely forgotten the purpose of his visit. However, he had originally come here with the intention of watching the show. So, it was normal for him to forget the main purpose. And now, collecting all the herbs he encountered along the way had become his top priority. Therefore, he insisted on resting for the night and leaving tomorrow morning. After hearing what Jiang Ning said, Old Leopard wanted to tell him that they didn't come here to pick herbs. It was a serious matter. Don't forget what you're here for, all right? However, when it saw that everyone present had nodded in agreement, it could only keep the cry in its heart back into its stomach. Although it didn't want to admit it, it wasn't worth much in the eyes of these people. After a moment of worry, Old Leopard, who had a good mentality, had no choice but to accept this fact. It seemed that it needed to get used to these people's slow pace. Old Leopard thought to himself. They rested for a night. The next morning, Leng Ruoxue and the others continued on their journey after breakfast. They still treated collecting the herbs they found along the way as a major task. Old Leopard was helpless about this, but he slowly got used to it. Later on, influenced by Leng Ruoxue and the others, Old Leopard even took the initiative to lead them to the areas with more weeds. Leng Ruoxue and the others naturally had a good harvest, but it had been more than 10 days when they arrived at the White Fox clan's territory. Standing at the edge of the White Fox tribe's territory, the Old Leopard was ashamed. It would have taken less than a day to reach the White Fox tribe's territory, but under his guidance, they had walked for more than 10 days. It was not because they had lost their way, but on purpose. Old Leopard couldn't help covering his face with his hands when he saw this. Those who didn't know would definitely think that it was so senile that it couldn't even find the White Fox tribe's territory. But in reality, it was even more wrong than Doe. Chief Leopard, haven't we arrived at the White Fox tribe's territory? Why aren't you going in? Or do I need you to give a roar and send a message to the White Fox race? Lung Ruashua looked at Old Leopard, who was standing there in a daze, and asked with a puzzled expression. If he roared, it would be a blatant provocation. The Old Leopard said. However, they seem to be here to provoke him. Little girl, Old Leopard said after some thought, I think we'd better go in directly. The White Fox tribe must have received news of their arrival long ago, so there was no need for them to put on an act. Chapter 23-23, Love at First Sight 2, Then Let's Go In. Lung Ruashua nodded. Then she gave the people around her a look, and they swaggered into the White Fox race's territory. When Old Leopard saw their vigorous and spirited appearance, his spirit was also shaken and he quickly followed them. As they walked, they did not even see a single strand of fox fur, much less a white fox. Chief Leopard, are you sure this is the territory of the Arctic fox? Lung Ruashua asked with uncertainty. It's absolutely true. Old Leopard nodded hard. What about the white fox? If there's no white one, a black one will do too. Lung Ruashua laughed lightly as she teased. However, the Old Leopard was not as relaxed as Lung Ruashua. The absence of the white foxes could only mean one thing: all the white foxes had been summoned back to their clans to deal with them. With this thought in mind, Old Leopard's mood instantly became heavy. He said with a serious face, the white foxes have probably rushed back to the clan. They must be here to deal with us. Oh, since that's the case, let's hurry to the White Fox tribe. Don't make them wait too long. When Lung Ruashua heard this, she quickly replied, I'm afraid I've been waiting for a long time. The Old Leopard secretly sighed. Of course, he would never say it out loud. Then he nodded and said, Then let's go. Unfortunately, its wish was good, but the reality was cruel. Even though they had already arrived at the White Fox tribe's territory, Jiang Ning and the other alchemists were still unwilling to let go of the medicinal herbs along the way. Seeing this, Old Leopard's heart was beating so fast that it was as if it was scratching his heart and liver. Just like that, the group took another 3 days to reach the White Fox race's territory and their base. As for the extremely narcissistic White Fox tribe leader, she was already getting impatient. When the clan leader of the White Fox clan had been anticipating the arrival of Lung Ruashua and the others, she had been in high spirits. Her condition and aura were at their peak, as though she was a warrior who was ready to fight in her best condition at any time. However, he was still looking forward to it. After a day and 2 days of absence, its mood gradually became anxious, and its accumulated state of mind slowly relaxed. In the end, its whole body was listless and became listless. Furthermore, it had been guarding outside with the Fox tribe members for the past few days, eating and sleeping in the open, exposed to the elements, and had completely lost its image. This was because it was not sure when Lung Ruashua and the rest would arrive. They were clearly very close to them, but they were still not here. The White Fox tribe leader was getting impatient, and the Fox tribe members were also getting tired of waiting. The image of the foxes was like that of a stray fox that had been wandering for a long time. Their originally snow-white fur had turned gray because they had not washed and combed it for a long time, and it was even stuck together. When Lung Ruashua and the others arrived at the White Fox clan's encampment, they were greeted by a group of dirty and listless foxes. Upon seeing this, Lung Ruashua turned to Old Leopard with a suspicious look. Chief Leopard, is this the Arctic Fox tribe? You didn't bring the wrong one? Thanks. Why does this place look like a beggar's den? Wasn't the White Fox race the strongest beast in the Floating Clouds Mountain? He was also known for his intelligence, so how did he end up in such a miserable state? Seeing these dirty foxes called white foxes, Lung Ruashua was deeply suspicious of the Old Leopard's words. Was the Old Leopard praising these foxes a little too much? Little girl, this is the White Fox race's territory. There's no mistake about it. Do you see the biggest fox? It's the leader of the White Fox race. In order to increase his credibility, Old Leopard specifically pointed out to Lung Ruoxue who the clan leader of the White Fox clan was. However, when Lung Ruoxue heard the Old Leopard's words, she shot a glance at the White Fox clan leader. She was even more distrustful of the Old Leopard's words. She couldn't believe that the dirty fox that was looking at them in a daze was the White Fox tribe's leader. If it really was, she would be extremely disappointed. In her eyes, all foxes love to be clean. However, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but cover her face with her hands. They were so dirty that she didn't dare to look at them directly. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue heard another sound. Then, the huge fox that was pointed out to be the White Fox clan leader did not even turn its head back and ran away madly behind her like a wisp of smoke. When the other foxes saw this, they also reacted. In the blink of an eye, all the foxes in front of Lung Ruoxue and the others had disappeared. What was this situation? Lung Ruoxue and the rest were dumbfounded by the fox's strange behavior. Even Old Leopard was confused. Little did they know that the White Fox clan leader had led a group of people to wait for Lung Ruoxue and the others. They had waited for too long, so none of the thoughts they had in their hearts, or what would happen when the two parties met, were put to use. Not only that, the test of time had made them lose their patience and confidence. Just as they had given up on guessing when Lung Ruoxue and the others would arrive, Lung Ruoxue and the others suddenly appeared in front of them. Hence, they could not react in time and were stunned. The conversation between Lung Ruoxue and the Old Leopard was naturally heard by all the foxes. When the White Fox clan leader came back to his senses, the first thing he thought of was how he would look like as the #1 beautiful fox in the White Fox clan. I'm finished. It was so embarrassing. As the White Fox clan leader ran, she let her thoughts run wild. Then, she ran back to her residence and quickly washed up. When she reappeared in front of Lung Ruoxue and the others, she was already a fragrant, clean, and snow-white fox. After washing up, the White Fox clan leader's confidence returned. The White Fox clan leader glanced at the Old Leopard arrogantly and said with a sullen face, "Old Leopard, you are a traitor of the beast race, and you still have the face to come back? He even brought back a human to help him. You have nothing to say now, right? Let's see how you're going to quibble." "I'm not trying to quibble. However, my little girl has said that I'm not a traitor to the beast race. You are." The Old Leopard raised his head and puffed out his chest as he spoke with incomparable confidence. These days, Lung Ruoxue and the others had been brainwashing him a lot. Therefore, the Old Leopard's confidence was now bursting. It was enough to kill all living beings in seconds. "Bullshit. You Old Leopard, we didn't collude with the humans to harm the interests of the beast race." The Old Leopard's words infuriated the White Fox clan leader, and she cursed in her heart. This was slander. The White Fox clan leader could not tolerate the Old Leopard's slander. It was so angry that its long fur stood on end. Its blue eyes were full of anger. If it had not retained a trace of rationality, it would have rushed forward and torn the Old Leopard into pieces. "I don't have any." Old Leopard also said innocently. "No? You've already brought the humans back, and you still dare to say you don't have them?" The White Fox clan leader questioned him angrily. Today, he finally realized that this seemingly honest Old Leopard was actually quite shameless. This was becoming more and more like it. Chapter 23-24, Love at First Sight, 3, There's nothing. Old Leopard still said, You. The White Fox clan leader pointed at the Old Leopard with her huge claws. She was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She was wrong. This Old Leopard was even more shameless than it. The facts were in front of it, but it still dared to renege on the debt. "Calm down." Old Leopard deliberately dragged out his voice, and then coughed a few times and continued, "That? Sly Fox, I'm here today to recruit you. You should quickly surrender." The Old Leopard's words were very direct. However, the White Fox clan leader was puzzled and asked, "What do you mean by amnesty enlistment?" It knew about surrendering, but it had never heard of the term amnesty. Amnesty enlistment means that you surrender of your own accord. Lung Ruoxue explained with a faint smile. Clan leader White Fox turned her gaze towards Lung Ruoxue. The moment she saw Lung Ruoxue, the White Fox clan leader clearly felt as if she had been struck by a bolt of lightning known as love. Then her little heart started to beat wildly. Her blue eyes were instantly filled with tears and her face was hot. Following that, she lowered her huge head in embarrassment. Why did this sly fox suddenly become shy? The old leopard saw the huge fox, who was just baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, wanting to cut him into 8 pieces, suddenly became shy like a little wife in the blink of an eye. He suddenly felt like thunder was rolling down from the sky. Could it be that in the blink of an eye, something had happened that it was unaware of? The old leopard was extremely puzzled. However, when he accidentally discovered that the sly fox was secretly peeking at the little girl Lung Ruoxue, he understood. It turned out to be a disaster caused by beauty. However, Lung Ruoxue's image had been circulating in the immortal realm for a long time, and he had never heard that this sly fox had taken a fancy to that little girl, Lung Ruoxue. Why did it look like it had fallen in love with the little girl at first sight? Should it congratulate him? Old Leopard was a little hesitant. That little girl's idea was not something that anyone could think of. Therefore, it could already foresee the tragic end of this sly fox. However, it didn't want to reveal the result, so it remained silent. As for Lung Ruoxue, she saw that clan leader White Fox had only glanced at her once before she hurriedly lowered her head. Her heart was filled with suspicion. She knew that many beastmen's aesthetic values were different from that of humans, so she naively thought that her appearance had frightened the fox. However, this was something that could not be helped. She couldn't possibly continue disguising herself just because her appearance had scared a fox, right? There was really no need for the current her to change her appearance. Who asked her reputation in the divine realm to be so resounding that it had already reached the point where everyone knew her. Thinking of this, Lung Ruoxue continued, the treatment of surrendering voluntarily and being forced to surrender is definitely different. So, clan leader White Fox, you must think this through. Do you want to surrender, or do you want us to use extreme means? I can follow you if I surrender. After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, the shy clan leader of the White Fox clan suddenly raised her head and asked with a serious expression. Of course. Lung Ruoxue nodded her head with certainty. After becoming her beastie, if it didn't follow by her side, where else could it go? Then, the White Fox clan leader peeked at Lung Ruoxue with her pink eyes. She then turned around to look at her clansmen who were all at a loss. She felt a little conflicted. Was love more important, or was clansmen more important? If they surrendered voluntarily, they would be able to stay by the side of the person they liked, and the safety of their tribesmen would be guaranteed. However, if they were forced to surrender, they would not have the chance to stay by the side of the person they liked, and the safety of their tribesmen would naturally be uncertain. As the White Fox clan leader pondered, she had already finished her analysis. However, if they surrendered just like that, wouldn't it be too much? The White Fox race was a respected beast race in the Floating Clouds Mountain. If the other beasts knew that it surrendered to the humans without even fighting, would they look down on it? At the thought of this, the White Fox clan leader secretly turned its gaze to the others. When it realized that it could not tell the strength of many people, it suddenly calmed down. Thanks, because there were only 2 possibilities for not being able to see through its strength. One was that the other party was hiding its strength, and the other was that the other party's strength was too much higher than its own. Now, it seemed that this situation was obviously the latter. Although these people did not deliberately release their auras, the White Fox clan leader could still sense that these people were stronger than her. In fact, they were much stronger. These people were obviously here to cause trouble. When the White Fox clan leader saw this, she felt a little indignant. However, as a smart fox, it was important for her to have self-awareness. Hence, after knowing the difference in strength between her and Lung Ruoxue's group, the White Fox clan leader had already made her choice. This wasn't because its will wasn't strong enough, it was just following the bigger picture. The White Fox clan leader consoled herself. Then, just as it was about to agree, it suddenly frowned and asked with uncertainty, "Are you Lung Ruoxue?" It better not get the wrong person. Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with black lines at the clan leader's question, but she still answered truthfully. However, before she could understand why the clan leader would ask this, she heard his voice. Then, I'll surrender. You're willing to surrender now that you know Lung Ruoxue? Lung Ruoxue was a little speechless. Since when did her name become so domineering? No. The White Fox clan leader was embarrassed again. It was only afraid that it had mistook the name of the person it loved, so it wanted to ask clearly. However, when the little foxes of the White Fox tribe heard that their tribe leader was going to surrender, they all fell into a petrified state. By the time they reacted and wanted to protest, everything was already set in stone. In addition to that, the White Fox clan leader was a man of his word in the clan. Therefore, there were not many clansmen who dared to oppose her. Thus, Lung Ruoxue did not face any obstacles when she took over the White Fox clan. In fact, it was so smooth that it left Jiang Ning and the others dumbfounded. After easily taking over the White Fox clan, the smaller beast clans that were attached to the White Fox clan naturally joined Lung Ruoxue's team. In just a short day, Lung Ruoxue had taken over 1/3 of the beast clans in the Floating Clouds Mountain. The speed and aggressiveness of the old leopard made him feel no sense of achievement, especially when he saw that the fox, who usually liked to go against him, was not even looking at him. The old leopard was a little disappointed. You bastard! It was something that would forget its friends at the sight of a beauty. It was wrong. They weren't friends, they were enemies. An opponent who forgets his friends at the sight of beauty. He actually ignored his existence. This was preposterous. Old Leopard was full of hatred. Before he came here, Old Leopard had imagined countless scenes when they met, such as a one-on-one fight, a group battle, a pair of ents, and so on. It had thought about everything, but it didn't expect that the cunning fox would surrender before the fight even started. This made it very at a loss. Old Leopard was very sullen and depressed about his old rival's unusual behavior. After thinking for a while, he quietly pulled Lung Ruoxue to the side and reminded her in a low voice, "Little girl, that fox is famous for being cunning. It surrendered so easily, be careful of a trap. I'm fine. It can't escape from my palm." Lung Ruoxue consoled him with a smile. With that, she left the depressed old leopard behind and left. The old leopard, who remained in the same place, felt extremely heavy. At this moment, the White Fox clan leader, who sneezed several times, came to the door with a suspicious look and asked in a low voice, "Damn old leopard, did you say something bad about me in front of Schwer? We're sworn enemies, have you forgotten? So, it's normal for me to badmouth you. Could it be that you're still hoping that I'll put in a good word for you?" The White Fox clan leader's question made the old leopard laugh. What a joke! It was truly laughable. Did this fox forget that there was a deep hatred between them? Therefore, Old Leopard felt that no matter how he criticized this sly fox, it was a matter of course. However, when the White Fox clan leader heard this, she did not fly into a rage. Instead, tears welled up in her eyes as she pitifully pleaded, "Brother Bao, Grandpa Leopard, everything that happened in the past was my fault. I was wrong. Please be magnanimous and forgive me. Please don't say bad things about me in front of Schwer. I'm begging you. All right?" Looking at the White Fox clan leader crying and begging him with tears in his eyes, the old leopard did not know what to say. He was not afraid if this sly fox roared and screamed at him or even fought with him, but he was afraid that humans or beasts would do this in front of him. In fact, it was hard to say that there was a deep grudge between it and this sly fox. After all, everyone lived on the same mountain. It was normal to have some small grudges. Usually, they would just fight and cause small troubles. There was really nothing that would harm the race. With this thought, and the White Fox clan leader's sorrowful plan had indeed worked, the simple and honest old leopard naturally forgave it. Orcs were like this. As long as it didn't involve irredeemable grudges like the extermination of their clan, everything else was fine. Therefore, under the White Fox clan leader's deliberate fawning, the leopard and fox, who were originally like fire and water, very quickly became as close as brothers, wearing the same pants. Chapter 23-25. Your opponent. 1. When Lung Ruoxue saw this situation, other than feeling a little speechless, she did not have any other thoughts. After all, Old Leopard and that narcissistic fox were already on her side. She was happy to see that the two of them had a good relationship. It was better than the two of them being like water and fire the moment they met. She had already beaten up quite a number of beastie the moment they met, so she really did not want to see the two beastie, who were like arch-enemies, again. Now that she saw that the two of them were good brothers, Lung Ruoxue felt very gratified. However, what she could not stand was that Old Leopard was actually brainwashed by that fox. As long as he found an opportunity, he would praise the fox in front of her as if the fox was the only one in the world. In the end, Lung Ruoxue was forced to hide far away from Old Leopard when she saw him, so that she would not be pestered by his words. After a few days, Old Leopard was depressed. When it was bored, it wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk with the little girl. However, the little girl actually came up with all sorts of excuses to ignore it. This fact made it particularly sad. Of course, its reaction was half a beat slower. At this moment, it still didn't know why Lung Ruoxue was looking down on it. One afternoon, the Old Leopard was lying on the White Fox tribe's territory, sighing and reminiscing about spring and autumn. Suddenly, a tall figure blocked the sunlight above his head and sat down beside him. The Old Leopard closed his eyes and saw Uncle Long. He lazily greeted Uncle Long. "Uncle Long, how are you?" "Hello." Uncle Long nodded and patted the Old Leopard's big furry head. He said helplessly, "Old Leopard, what's wrong with you these days? You sigh all day long. The little girl is ignoring me." After hearing Uncle Long's words, Old Leopard seemed to have found a group and said with a face of grievance, "What did you do to make her unhappy?" Uncle Long asked curiously. "I didn't." Old Leopard buried his head in his thoughts, but he could not figure out how he had offended Lung Ruoxue. "Impossible. You must have done something." Uncle Long glanced at the confused Old Leopard and said with certainty, "But I really didn't do anything. Is it because I talked to her too much a while ago, so the two beside her are unhappy?" The Old Leopard was suspicious, and the two fingers he was referring to were naturally evil and azure. "What did you and Schwer talk about?" Hearing Old Leopard's words, Uncle Long's curiosity was piqued again. Although the evildoer and Senior Tsong were very stingy, they wouldn't put someone on their blacklist just because they wanted to chat with Schwer, right? "Nothing much, just about that fox. I put in a few good words for it in front of the little girl." Old Leopard said honestly. "I see." Uncle Long finally understood. That Sly Fox's intentions toward Schwer were too obvious. They couldn't even pretend that they didn't see it. So, they had always been tactful and stayed away from that fox. They didn't expect that this Old Leopard would actually dare to bump into the muzzle of a gun. No wonder Schwer didn't like to bother with it. However, in his opinion, Schwer ignoring this Old Leopard was also for its own good. Otherwise, when the demon and Senior Tsong started a fight, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. "Uncle Long, do you know the reason?" Seeing that Uncle Long seemed to have understood, Old Leopard asked shamelessly. "Oh, woo!" All of a sudden, a pained cry was heard. Uncle Long patted Old Leopard's head and said with sympathy, "You should know now." "Thanks. Is that a coquettish fox?" Old Leopard looked at Uncle Long and said with uncertainty, "Well, it's being fixed by someone. Don't be stupid enough to go and help. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble too." Uncle Long kindly reminded, "I don't know anything." The cries in his ears were getting more and more miserable. Old Leopard really didn't know what to do except to pretend to be deaf and mute. Its little heart trembled as it listened. It was really too terrifying. The Old Leopard had a lingering fear. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration and seemed to understand. Old Leopard, who was slow to understand, immediately got up from the ground and ran towards Lung Ruoxue's direction. Of course, it wasn't there to put in a good word for that sly fox. This time, It was to suggest that Leng Ruoxue set off to subdue the other two-thirds of the beast race. After subduing the White Fox clan, Leng Ruoxue and the rest had stayed here for a few days. Of course, this was strongly requested by the alchemists on their side. In the words of those alchemists, they needed to sort out the medicinal herbs they had dug up. By now, they should be almost done, right? Therefore, Old Leopard was very eager for them to set off immediately. Leng Ruoxue, who was urged by the Old Leopard, decided to set off after seeking the opinions of Jiangning and the others. However, before they set off, neither Leng Ruoxue nor the Old Leopard saw the patriarch of the White Fox clan. Of course, no one would mention it at this time. Leng Ruoxue and the rest's next destination was the territory of the Wolf clan. Originally, the Arctic Fox tribe, the Werewolves, and the Leopards were the three great beast tribes of the Floating Clouds Mountain. After Old Leopard's leopard tribe was pushed out, the territory of the leopard tribe was taken over by the bear tribe. The bear tribe also became one of the three major forces in the Floating Clouds Mountain. However, in this subduing operation, they had put the subduing of the bear tribe last. Not long after Leng Ruoxue and the rest set off, a tall figure suddenly appeared at the main entrance of the White Fox clan's encampment. That tall figure had tears in his eyes as he looked longingly at the beautiful figure that was leaving. Suddenly, he let out a loud wah and started wailing. "Clan leader, my condolences." Seeing her clan leader cry without a care for his image, the little fox beside the tall figure had an extremely conflicted expression on her face. "My condolences, my ass. You've been turned into this by me, can you even cry? My Xue, my love. Woo, I'm so ugly right now, how can I be by Xue Er's side?" After hearing the little fox's words, the tall figure, whose original appearance could not be seen at all, cried even more sorrowfully. The little fox was helpless and didn't know what to say. It's just that his fur was shaved. Did she have to cry so sadly? It's not like it can't grow back. The little fox could not understand. Compared to its clan leader's face that had been beaten into a pig's head, it deeply felt that it was nothing to lose fur. The clan leader's face was the most serious injury, okay? Unfortunately, the beauty-loving patriarch didn't think so at all. When she thought of this, the little fox closed her eyes and glanced at the clan leader's current appearance. The long fur on its body had been shaved flat, and there was a bald patch here and there. Its face was swollen like a pig's head, and it was swollen with colorful bruises. It was impossible to see its original appearance. Those two terrifying guys actually didn't allow the clan leader to eat healing pills and asked him to recover naturally. This fact made the timid little fox's heart tremble. What those two guys did to the clan leader was really too outrageous. Chapter 23-26, I'm Your Opponent, 2. However, it only dared to feel indignant for the clan leader in its heart. It definitely did not dare to find trouble with those two fellows. If the clan leader was not their match, then even the entire White Fox clan would not be enough. Therefore, the White Fox tribe could only support and console their clan leader. "Clan leader, master, and the others have gone far away. We should return. You still have to recuperate." Looking at the clan leader who was crying and sobbing, the little fox did her job and reminded her. "Oh." The sobbing White Fox clan leader wiped her tears and obediently went back. Right now, she only dared to sneak a glance at Xue. She did not have the face to appear in front of her at all. This was because she had actually promised that she would not have any more ideas about Xue when she was faced with those two evil forces. Therefore, she felt that she could only change her love to a secret love. So, it was so miserable as a fox. It had finally met the love of its heart, so why did it have to meet those two evil forces? The White Fox clan leader's face was filled with grief and indignation. Then, with her head lowered, she slowly walked back to the clan in a dejected and miserable manner. Leng Ruoxue wasn't aware of this scene, and Song, who was aware of it, naturally wouldn't tell Leng Ruoxue about this. On the way to the Wolf tribe's territory, Jiangning and the others gathered herbs like crazy again. Old Leopard was calm about this. He patiently waited for them to finish gathering herbs and then continued to lead the way. Just like that, the short journey to the wolf tribe took them another 5 days. The werewolves, who had been watching them all this time, were almost driven mad by their slow movements. However, the leader of the werewolves was not like the White Fox clan, who always stood guard outside the encampment. The wolf clan's patriarch was very calm. Other than sending people to gather information and monitor the movements of Lung Ruoxue and the others, he did what he had to do. The moment Lung Ruoxue and the rest entered the wolf clan's territory, they were immediately surrounded by the wolf pack that had been waiting at their original location. The wolves that surrounded them were mostly black wolves. Of course, there were also a few red wolves. From the color of these wolves, Lung Ruoxue knew without a doubt that the strength of the wolf tribe here was not high. In the wolf clan, the silver wolf had the highest status and was also the noblest. However, there was not a single wolf among these wolves, so their strength was naturally not that strong. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly when she saw the wolves' covetous eyes. Then, with a thought, she took out the silver wolf tribe member from her bracelet. The silver wolf king, who was being lovey-dovey with his wife, was a little confused when it first came out. However, when it smelled the scent of its own kind, it immediately released its own pressure and roared provocatively at the sky. Then, it held its head high and looked down at the wolf pack in front of it. The wolf pack that had surrounded Lung Ruoxue and the others were initially smug and pleased with themselves. However, when they saw the silver wolf clan that had suddenly appeared, they were all completely dumbfounded. What was this? The silver wolf tribe? Thanks, the howls of the silver wolf king had already made the timid wolves shiver in fear. Especially when the silver wolf king looked at them with an extremely disdainful gaze, some of the wolves' legs went soft and they could not even stand steadily. After a short while, the wolves that surrounded Lung Ruoxue and the others knelt down one after another. The silver wolf king was the most respected king in the wolf clan. Although it was not their king, they still had to kneel when they saw the silver wolf king. This was because the difference in status was determined by the bloodline of the wolf tribe. The silver wolf king's bloodline was naturally superior to all other wolves, and it naturally had a suppressing effect on the wolf clan. Therefore, no matter what status their clan had in the floating cloud mountain, they could not get up when they saw the silver wolf king. "You bastard! Who dares to cause trouble in my wolf clan? You must be tired of living." Just as the wolves were trembling and paying their respects to the silver wolf king, an earth-shaking roar came from afar. Needless to say, this was definitely the local wolf that had heard the silver wolf king's howl and had come out from its own home to establish its might. In an instant, a black figure teleported to Lung Ruoxue and the rest sighed. Following that, a silver figure dashed out rapidly. The silver and black figures were entangled with each other. However, in the blink of an eye, the battle between the two figures had ended. Then, Lung Ruoxue and the others were speechless as they watched the silver wolf king on their side trample on a giant black wolf that was slightly smaller than it. The giant black wolf's face was also filled with unyielding anger. It struggled to get up, but the silver wolf king's big claws slapped down, and the giant black wolf became obedient again. "Detestable! Where did you come from, silver wolf king? How come I've never seen you before?" The giant black wolf howled with grief and indignation. But why would the silver wolf king come to the floating cloud mountain? Originally, he had chosen the floating clouds mountain as his territory because the silver wolf tribe looked down on it. But he had never thought that after so many years of carefreeness and comfort, he would actually meet a silver wolf king. No, it was a silver wolf tribe. Looking at the silver wolves surrounding its little brother, the giant black wolf became more and more indignant. Were these really silver wolves? Having lived in the divine realm for so many years, it had never known that there were so many members of the silver wolf tribe. Who was the one who said that the silver wolves could only give birth to one at a time? Wasn't this just a rumor? Looking at these wolves, it could not believe that they were all born one by one. Because according to what he knew, even the Silver Wolf clan, which was the most powerful clan in the divine realm, did not have more than half the number of clansmen in front of him. have you seen all the Silver Wolf Kings? The Silver Wolf King asked with a smile after hearing the Black Wolf's words. So what if I am? The giant Black Wolf was very uncooperative. Seeing this, the Silver Wolf King was neither angry nor annoyed. Instead, its huge claws directly hit the head of the giant Black Wolf again. With a loud paw sound, the giant Black Wolf's head drooped down, and there were only little stars in front of its eyes. Whatever this king asks you, you have to answer properly. Otherwise, you'll be the one in trouble. The Silver Wolf King warned. You're really bullying a wolf. We're both wolves, how can you bully the weak? The Black Wolf's expression became more and more sorrowful, and its voice was a little choked. So what if I bully you? If I don't bully you, would you be honest? The Silver Wolf King replied calmly. This is my territory. The giant Black Wolf couldn't help but remind him. Coming to its territory to bully it, how dare this detestable fellow? It's mine now. This place, as well as all of you, have been commandeered by me. From now on, all of you will have to follow my master, understand? The Silver Wolf King did not care about what the giant Black Wolf said. It announced its decision and the fate of these wolves. The giant Black Wolf was so angry that its long hair stood on end. However, it did not have the chance to show its anger. The Silver Wolf King punched and kicked it again. When it stopped, the giant Black Wolf was already on its last breath. Chapter 23-27. Am your opponent? 3. Can't you be more honest? Must I use violence? After the Silver Wolf King was done beating him up, it even grumbled in dissatisfaction. Upon hearing this, the giant Black Wolf wanted to cry but had no tears. Lung Ruox's face was filled with black lines. The mocking gazes of Uncle Long and the others made her feel extremely awkward. She guaranteed that her beastie's violence had nothing to do with her. Are you being honest now? Are you convinced? Seeing that the Black Wolf did not respond, the Silver Wolf King asked again impatiently. I'm honest, I'm convinced. The Black Wolf had tears in its eyes. He couldn't even stand up after being beaten up, so how could he be disobedient? That's good. Remember, you have to follow my master in the future. Do whatever my master says. If you dare to play tricks, he'll continue to beat you up. The Silver Wolf King threatened. Why do you have a master? The Black Wolf asked in disbelief. In fact, it had wanted to ask this question earlier, but before it could open its mouth, it was beaten up. Now, it also wanted to know the answer to this question, otherwise, it would die with grievances. Why can't I have a master? The Silver Wolf King was stunned for a moment and asked. The noble Silver Wolf clan will not recognize a master. The giant Black Wolf said very seriously. Even they were not willing to find a master for themselves, let alone the Silver Wolf clan, which had the noblest bloodline among the Wolf clan. Therefore, it could not understand that the Silver Wolf King in front of it who had beaten it up had a master. Yes, that's because they didn't meet a good master. Otherwise, they'll beg to be recognized as their master. When the Silver Wolf King heard this, it immediately scoffed. Maybe. The giant Black Wolf did not know what to say when it saw the Silver Wolf King's stubbornness. At the same time, in order to prevent itself from being beaten up again, it tactfully echoed the wolf. The Silver Wolf King patted the head of the giant Black Wolf in admiration and promised, "Follow my master and do a good job. I promise you won't suffer any losses." I still don't know who your master is. The giant Black Wolf helplessly reminded. It seemed like it could only accept its fate. My master is Lung Ruoxua. From now on, you have to listen to her. The Silver Wolf King warned. Yes. The giant Black Wolf nodded. It should have guessed that this Silver Wolf was related to that human, Lung Ruoxua. It was a pity that it didn't think in that direction because it didn't like humans. However, now that he knew this fact, it was probably useless. It was already in the bag of these humans. Following that, under the Silver Wolf King's authority, the giant Black Wolf, which was covered in injuries, respectfully invited Lung Ruoxua and the rest to the encampment. Then, it sent people to invite the weaker magical beasts that were attached to the wolf clan. Just like that, Lung Ruoxue subdued the wolf clan and the forces on its side without much effort. The Silver Wolf King, who had made a great contribution, immediately asked for the bracelet back after the Black Wolf became obedient and continued to be intimate with his beloved wife. When Old Leopard saw Lung Ruoxue and the others had subdued the wolf tribe, he sighed with emotion. If these people had not wasted their time on picking herbs, Floating Clouds Mountain would have been in their hands by now. However, it also knew that the Floating Clouds Mountain was too small, so this little girl didn't put it in her eyes at all. Otherwise, she wouldn't have taken picking herbs as her main task and subduing the beasts of the Floating Clouds Mountain at the same time. After subduing the wolf tribe, Lung Ruoxue and the rest did not waste any more time. The next day, they set off for their final destination, the bear tribe's encampment. Along the way, the Old Leopard looked at the familiar road and couldn't help crying several times. He was too familiar with the road to the bear tribe, but now it didn't belong to him. The Old Leopard was a little sad. If he had not been so useless, he would not have left his home and been driven out of the Floating Cloud Mountain. This time, he must hold his head high and restore the prestige of the leopard tribe. At the thought of this, Old Leopard couldn't help but turn to Lung Ruoxue and say, "Little girl, regarding the matter of subduing the bear tribe, let me step in." "Sure." Lung Ruoxue nodded. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had agreed, Old Leopard's momentum was boosted, and he walked with vigor. However, when he arrived at the bear tribe's encampment, Old Leopard felt a sense of homesickness. Lung Ruoxue was speechless when she saw Old Leopard's coy look. Wasn't this Old Leopard's imposing manner quite high along the way? "Why are you so scared here?" Thanks seeing this, Lung Ruoxue could not help but remind him, "Leopard clan leader, it's your turn. Go." The bear clan was different from the fox clan and the wolf clan. No one from the bear clan had come out to welcome them. At this time, the bears were in hibernation. Therefore, Lung Ruoxue guessed that those lazy bears should be sleeping. "I'm going," Old Leopard said with his chest out. "Yes." Lung Ruoxue nodded. Then, just as she was about to see Old Leopard off, who knew that Old Leopard would suddenly become dispirited and lower his head, looking listless. "They'll brew it again." Old Leopard couldn't help but whisper, "What are you afraid of? Isn't it just a bear? They're not as agile as you. You can beat them, can't you?" Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask. The Old Leopard's fearsome appearance was really unlike the Old Leopard she knew. Could it be that he had been replaced? "It's not that I can't beat them, but their defense is too thick. It's too troublesome to fight them, so I have to think of a good way. Otherwise, I'll be exhausted to death by them." The Old Leopard explained. In the entire divine world, there were not many beasts who were willing to fight with those big stupid bears. Unless it was at the level of the 4 king divine beasts, which could kill any beast in seconds, they would be at a disadvantage fighting with bears. "I see." Lung Ruoxue gave it some thought. This was indeed a problem. However, didn't Old Leopard think of this before he came here? Why did he only think about this now? This Old Leopard's reaction was really slow. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but sigh as she looked at Old Leopard, who was deep in thought. She then suggested, "Why don't you rest while I deal with them?" This. I said I'd do it myself." Old Leopard said, embarrassed. "Isn't this a different story? If you have a good idea, of course you will deal with it, but before that, let me do it for you. How is it?" Lung Ruoxue coaxed. "All right then. You deal with them first, I'll continue to think of a way." Old Leopard thought for a while and agreed. "All right." Lung Ruoxue chuckled to herself, then said, "Leopard clan leader, please call out our opponent first." "No problem, watch me." Old Leopard's chi power suddenly changed. Then he immediately roared towards the empty boundary. Following that, Lung Ruoxue and the others heard footsteps. They felt the ground in front of them was shaking and the rumbling sounds were deafening. After that, dozens of dark brown bears that were over 10 meters tall appeared in front of Lung Ruoxue and the others. These bears all looked drowsy, and some of them were still covered in dried yellow grass. They all looked like they had not woken up. But when they saw Old Leopard, their bronze-like eyes instantly widened. Old Leopard, you dare to come back? He even brought back a lot of humans. You're so bold. Aren't you afraid that the beasts of our Floating Clouds Mountain will join forces to exterminate you? The largest bear in the lead roared at the top of its voice. They still didn't know that Floating Clouds Mountain was about to change hands. These bears loved to sleep and had been sleeping ever since they occupied the Old Leopard's territory. Therefore, they knew nothing about the changes in the Floating Clouds Mountain, and never would they have thought that they were the only force left in the Floating Clouds Mountain. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let their guard down. I'm scared. However, I'm afraid I have to come back. Old Leopard said with a smile. Did you come back to die? Since you're looking for death, don't blame us for being ruthless. The leading bear said coldly. It thought that Old Leopard had found a helper to get back his territory. For the brown bear tribe, it was impossible to make it spit out the territory that they had finally obtained. Don't worry, I won't blame you. Old Leopard laughed secretly, because these bears were about to be in the little girl's pocket. Hearing the Old Leopard's words, the leader of the giant bears grinned. Then, the huge bear pounced at the Old Leopard. However, before it could touch the Old Leopard's fur, it was blocked by a petite human woman. Needless to say, this human woman was Lung Ruoshua. Lung Ruoshua blocked the giant bear's path. Before the giant bear was completely enraged, she said directly, "Big guy, I'm your opponent." What? Upon hearing this, the leader of the giant bears looked down at Lung Ruoshua. It could not imagine that this human woman, who was not even as thick as its arm, would actually dare to stop it. Could it be that this little human did not know that he could send her flying out of Floating Cloud Mountain with a single kick? Was she not afraid? I'm your opponent. Seeing the suspicious expression on the leader of the giant bears, Lung Ruoshua felt that the fellow in front of her did not understand what she was saying, so she repeated herself. However, hearing the same words for the second time, the giant bear leader was furious. You bastard! I'm not deaf, you don't have to repeat it twice. Lung Ruoshua fell silent. If you understand, why don't you give me a reaction? Why do you have a blank expression? When Uncle Long and the rest heard the giant bear's words and caught a glimpse of Lung Ruoshua's depressed look, they laughed in their hearts. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.